Under the shadow of neon lights, in the dilapidated alleys of the old district of Xiuxian, the air is filled with a damp musty smell and oily smoke from street barbecue stalls. Chen squatted at the door of his 10-square-meter rental house, holding in his hand an ancient jade pendant left by his grandfather before his death. The surface of the jade pendant was mottled, and there was a faint spiritual light, but he regarded it as a cheap souvenir and never paid attention to it for many years. The college entrance examination for immortal cultivation is a fucking game played by geniuses from aristocratic families. Chen muttered to himself, clenching his fists. The TV is live broadcasting the nationwide recruitment of immortals. Flying swords pierce the night sky among high-rise buildings, children of aristocratic families soar with swords, and magic weapons shine brightly. For poor students like him, it is difficult to even find the qualifications to apply. Outside the Jiangqing University area, countless candidates squeezed their heads, but were squeezed out by wealthy resources. Chen's classmate and friend were kicked out of the examination room by Xiao Yi, the genius of the Xiao family. His path to immortality was cut short and he became a mortal wage earner. Despair came like a tide. Chen's parents died early, and he barely made a living by delivering food. The world of immortality is hidden in the urban jungle. After 10 years of spiritual recovery, the National Unified College Entrance Examination determines everything: a written test to screen for genius, a practical test to test one's abilities, and a competition arena to decide life and death. Only the top 100 people enter top celestial monasteries, such as Tianxian Monastery, otherwise they will live a mediocre life. Chen's spiritual root test is only level 3, and he is not even qualified for marginal candidates. Suddenly, the jade pendant burned like fire. Chen's heart was shocked, and his soul seemed to be pulled into the endless void. The remnant soul of my grandfather emerged. Chener, the ancestral flying sword remote control navigation technique, awaken. A golden light penetrated the eyebrows, and countless runes flickered like data streams. Chen's vision went dark, and when he woke up, there was a palm-sized mini flying sword in his hand. The sword's body was engraved with technological navigation patterns, and it hummed low. This, flying sword remote control. Chen gasped and stood up, spiritual energy surged around his body. As a cultivator in the city, flying swords mostly need to be wielded at close range, but he has awakened a unique skill of long-distance control. With a thought, the flying sword shot out like a missile, streaking across the night sky, and accurately locked on a boulder as big as a human head at the end of the alley. "Try it!" Chen shouted. The flying sword accelerated, the navigation pattern lit up with blue light, it curved to avoid the street lights, and pierced the boulder. Boom! The huge boulder exploded, rubble scattered like rain, and the smoke and dust were filled with the smell of burning gravel. A few homeless men at the alley widened their eyes, and the wine bottles slipped from their hands and smashed to the ground with a clear and ear-piercing sound. One of the old men retreated tremblingly. Heavenly sword. Is this guy a hidden master? Chen's heart was racing and he clenched his fists. I'm going to counterattack. Sign up for the college entrance examination to cultivate immortality and crush those dogs from aristocratic families. He put his sword into his body and rushed to the Xiuxian College Entrance Examination Registration Center. It was a splendid fairy arts building, with the slogan, National Enrollment, only geniuses entering the Holy Gate, scrolling on the floating screen wall. The registration hall was crowded with people, and the air was filled with the herbal aroma of expensive elixirs and the nervous sweat of the candidates. Chen squeezed to the counter and handed over his ID card. Sign up for the Cultivation College Entrance Examination, Practical Group. The middle-aged woman behind the counter, Sister Zhao, glanced at Chen's shabby clothes and the third-level spiritual root data, and snorted a sneer. She is a relative of the Xiao family, and she specializes in making things difficult for casual cultivators with no background. Boy, get out of here. Third-level spiritual roots. You don't even deserve to take the preliminaries. Last year, 9 out of 10 people like you were instantly killed by Master Xiao with one sword, leaving no trace of their bodies. No resources, no backers, and the registration fee is 10,000 spiritual stones. How can you afford it? The candidates around him snickered when they heard this, and some pointed at him. Look at how poor you are, you still want to become an immortal. A genius from a family like Xiao Yi, who was born with a 9th-level spiritual root and a lot of magic weapons. This kind of thing is worse than the sweeper at the registration office. Yi Chen's face was livid, and he gritted his teeth and said, as a rule, any Chinese citizen can sign up. Give me your form. Sister Zhao rolled her eyes, slapped her fat palms on the table, and the tabletop buzzed with spiritual energy. Rules? In the world of immortality, the rules are those who have the final say. The Xiao family invests in our center. Who are you? Get out, or the security guards will attack you with flying swords. 2 strong security guards behind her took a step forward, and the flying swords at their waists were unsheathed, and the cold light shone on Yi Chen's pale face. The jeers in the hall were louder, and someone whistled, hit him. Let this poor guy know that the sky is high and the sky is high. Despair overwhelmed me again. Yi Chen's throat felt dry and his legs felt like lead. Will the fate of poor students happen again? No. The flying sword buzzed between his eyebrows, and he thought, I'll give you some color to see. Invisibly, the mini flying sword quietly sprang out and disappeared into the texture of the floor tiles, gliding silently like a ghost. Sister Zhao was still shouting, security, come on. Cut off his spiritual roots so that he will never be able to cultivate as an immortal. Suddenly, buzz. A wisp of sword energy shot up from under the counter and pierced the floor tiles at Sister Zhao's feet. Snap! The floor tiles exploded, and the sword light cut like a missile with precision, drawing a perfect arc, wrapping around her ankle, and instantly cut off the hilt of the flying sword at the security guard's waist. The broken sword clinked to the ground, and the sword actually navigated automatically in the air, circled the hall, and hovered on Yi Chen's shoulder, buzzing and circling. The hall was dead silent. Sister Zhao's legs went weak and she collapsed on the ground. Her pants were soaked and the smell of urine filled the air. Her eyes widened, her pupils as sharp as needlepoints. This, remote control flying sword? Impossible. The urban flying sword needs to be controlled within sight. Where are you hiding? The 2 security guards were stunned, holding their hands on the empty scabbards, sweat pouring from their foreheads. One of them had a trembling voice, the sword flew by itself. It was like a navigation system, twisting and turning and breaking my sword. What kind of magic is this? The candidates around them seemed to see ghosts, and some screamed and backed away. The hidden power. He didn't even take action just now, but the sword came over by remote control. A young man from an aristocratic family recognized the clues and turned pale. Flying sword remote control navigation, a legendary ancestral skill. Only the ancient immortal sect has it. This guy is a casual cultivator. Yi Chen sneered, the flying sword spinning on his fingertips, and the blue light reflected his blade-like eyes. Now, give me the registration form. Otherwise, your spiritual root will be next. Sister Zhao stood up tremblingly, took out a gold-rimmed registration form from the depth of the drawer, and held it out with both hands. Here you. Please forgive me. Her voice was like a mosquito, her usually arrogant fat face was twisted into a ball, and her eyes were full of fear and admiration. Yi Chen took the watch and swept away his spiritual power. Everyone in the hall retreated, their rapid breathing echoing in the air. The scoffers bowed their heads, and some people knelt down. Genius, have mercy. We are blind. He turned and left, his back like a mountain. The poor boy, in his first battle, has shocked the whole audience. The urban immortal cultivator will have one more demon god from now on. The night wind was like a knife, blowing through the neon-lit streets of Jiangcheng. The crowd outside the registration center had dispersed. Only a few passers-by were left, tightly wrapped in their collars and whispering shiveringly, that kid just now, the sword flew by itself, how evil. Chen held the gold-rimmed registration form tightly, the blood-red mark pulsating like a living thing, and the projected map pointed directly at an abandoned tower in the city center, Netherworld Pavilion, a rumored forbidden area in the city where auras were mixed with ghosts crying and wolves howling, and the corpses of those who trespassed were left without trace. When midnight was approaching, he took a deep breath of the air mixed with gasoline and mist, and trembled slightly with his flying sword between his brows. I'm going to risk it all. Walking as fast as the wind, Chen ducked into the dark alley and jumped up the high wall following the map projection. Outside the tower, the fog was as thick as ink, and a low ghost howl could be heard faintly. The air was filled with the smell of decaying tomb soil, making his stomach churn. The entrance is hidden in the broken wall of the tower base, and the shadow of a blood gate flashes the runes of written examination, only the wise survive. With a thought in Chen's mind, the mini flying sword quietly sprang out. The palm-sized blade slid invisibly. The blue light navigation pattern was like a radar scan, accurately cutting the edge of the shadow and tearing open a humanoid crack. Buzz! He ducked in, and the blood door behind him suddenly closed, and the ghost whistled like a needle piercing a membrane. In the Netherworld Pavilion, the written examination hall is like an endless netherworld, with thousands of floating light screens floating in the sky, reflecting a large number of examination questions, analysis of ancient runes, identification of spirit beast maps, refining of the 9-turn alchemy, deduction of the 9 palaces of the formation. There are only a few hundred candidates, all descendants of aristocratic families, and the fragrance of expensive spiritual tea and the bitterness of ink float in the air. Chen bowed his head and sat down, his shabby clothes standing out among the gorgeous clothes. The candidates around him glanced at him with dagger-like eyes. A country bumpkin with a 3rd-level spiritual root? How did that crazy woman in the registration center get in? A fat young man from a well-known family sneered with a sharp and harsh voice. You crawled out of the slums, right? 90% of the candidates will be eliminated in one written test. Our family's ancestral jade slips have already been filled up. Chen's forehead was dripping with sweat, and he scanned the questions like a book from heaven. The runes are densely packed, and the maps of spiritual beasts are ever-changing. He was born in a poor family, how could he have seen these? Despair surged in my heart, it's over. No matter how strong Feijian is, my brain can't hold it. The examination questions were projected like a mountain on top, and time passed through the hourglass. The candidates around them had flashes of inspiration, and the jade slips assisted their memory, and their answers were like running water. Young Master Fat Dun glanced at his blank light screen and taunted, "Look at this poor guy, his hands are shaking like a sieve. He still wants the immortal path with his 3rd-level spiritual root. Go home and deliver takeaways." Laughing like waves, the candidates pointed and someone sprayed out spiritual tea foam. Master Xiao heard about it, he laughed to death. The desire to rise first suppressed, Chen gritted his teeth and held back, a golden light flashed between his eyebrows. The 2nd level of awakening of the flying sword remote control technique, navigation memory. With a slight movement in his mind, the mini flying sword appeared invisible, and the sword's body was filled with blue light. It hovered in the sky above the hall like a drone, and its navigation patterns scanned thousands of light screens. A humming sound went straight into Chen's eyebrows, and the rune map was like a torrent of data filling his brain, and it was engraved in an instant. Ancient Fire Talisman, turn 3 to the left and 7 to the right. Chen's fingers were flying, the light screen answered questions like lightning, and the perfect runes flashed with golden light. The main hall was dead silent. Young Master Fatty stared at him, and the jade slip in his hand fell to the ground with a cracking sound as clear as a whip. How could this country bumpkin do that? He has only memorized half of my ancestral jade slips, and his screen is all green. The beautiful eyes of the girl candidate next to her widened, and the spirit teacup trembled and poured out, and the hot air was mixed with her gasping. Impossible. Level 3 Spirit Gen, how can you remember so quickly without the help of a magic weapon? That blue light, something flew by in the sky just now. The candidates were whispering and screaming, but who saw him doing it? He didn't have any sword energy. An old examiner muttered with squinting eyes and trembling hair, "It's rumored that this kid is too hidden." Suddenly, the side door of the main hall opened and Xiao Yi stepped in. He was dressed in a golden silk robe, and his 9th-level spiritual roots were as powerful as a dragon. He had 3 bright flying swords hanging from his waist, and was surrounded by the phantoms of spiritual beasts. There were dozens of attendants, dragging a few poor candidates with bruises and swollen faces, and the smell of blood was overwhelming. Xiao Yi glanced at the whole audience and smiled ferociously. "It's just a written test, I can just deal with it casually. How dare these poor guys compete for the quota? Break their legs and throw them out." He kicked a candidate away, and the man hit the stone wall with a muffled sound of bones cracking and blood spurting out of his mouth. "Young Master Xiao, spare your life, we have 3rd-level spiritual roots, and we also want to give it a try." Xiao Yi laughed wildly. "Fight? I am a 9th-level genius, and the family's flying sword can be controlled hundreds of miles away. Are you worthy?" Pushing away from the building, with the night wind blowing in his face, Chen lowered his head and looked at the registration form carefully. Suddenly, a blood-red mark appeared on the gold edge of the watch, flashing like thunder and lightning, turning into a map projection. "Written examination room, Netherworld Pavilion, secret entrance, opened at midnight. Anyone who trespasses will die." Chen's heart was beating wildly. Who left this mark? The written test is actually in a forbidden area in the city? In the shadows, a pair of cold eyes watched quietly. It was Xiuxian. The corners of her lips raised slightly. "Interesting casual cultivator, the college entrance examination, see the real results." Xiao Yi stepped forward with a sinister smile, his palms of spiritual power were like fire, and he pressed on Chen's shoulders. "Rules. I am the rule." Just as the wind of his palm reached his body, a blue light flashed between Chen's brows, and the invisible flying sword slid out, went around Xiao Yi's waist, and tapped the hilts of the 3 flying swords. Ding! The navigation pattern invaded. Xiao Yi's sword actually trembled slightly, and the blue light flashed away. Xiao Yi's face turned pale, his palms were frozen in the air, and he was sweating like rain. "My sword was blue just now. You dare to control my magic weapon?" The followers were stunned, and the hand that unsheathed the flying sword kept trembling. The master's sword shook by itself, as if it was locked by the navigation. Hope ignited in the eyes of the poor candidates, and some choked. "Brother, save us." When his eyes fell on Chen, Xiao Yi's pupils shrank. You're a bumpkin from the registration center. Aunt Xiao said that if you cut off the security guard with your sword, you'd scare her to death." "Humph, you 3rd-level waste, get out of the written examination, or I'll cut you to pieces with my sword." The followers roared with laughter, and the flying swords all unsheathed, and the cold light shone on Chen's face. The candidates around him were silent, and someone whispered, "Xiao Yidong is serious, this kid is dead." Chen's fists were clenched white, and the flying sword was buzzing in his body, but he held back and said coldly, "Competing within the rules, Xiao is majestic." Chen stood up, his eyes like swords. "Master Xiao, let's talk after the written test is over." He ignored the shocked gazes around him. The light screen flashed with golden light, and the projections in the entire audience turned green. The old examiner's voice trembled and he announced loudly, "Passed the written test. Chen, 1st place. Enter the preliminary list." The hall was boiling, and the fat young master slumped down and murmured, "1st place. This country bumpkin is unbelievable." The girl's pretty face turned red, she bit her lips and whispered, "That blue light is so strong, my heartbeat can't stop." Xiao Yi's face was as dark as a pot, and he gritted his teeth. "See you in the preliminary round. I will crush you." He threw away his sleeves and left. When the followers were dragging the poor students, someone bowed his head and thanked Chen, with tears shining in his eyes. Chen held a grudge in his heart. "Xiao Yi, I will fly my sword through your heart sooner or later." After the written examination, the morning light first appeared outside Netherworld Pavilion. and the preliminary rules were projected in the air. In the actual knockout round, each person will compete in a one-on-one round, and the winner will advance to the conference arena. Only the first 500 enter the ring, and all magic weapons are used, regardless of life or death. The candidates were talking a lot. The elimination round is cruel, the spiritual beasts and magic weapons of the aristocratic families are rampant, and casual cultivators will die. Chen walked out of the tower door. The air was filled with the residual smell of morning dew and blood, and suddenly he heard laughter. Xiao Yi was showing off in the middle of the square. He summoned the family's flying swords, and the three giant swords roared in unison. Blue and gold light intertwined, and the sword beams were drawn for 100 meters, shattering the rockery in the distance. The gravel was like rain, and the smoke and dust were mixed with the smell of burnt earth. The followers knelt down and worshipped. Young master is mighty. This remote-controlled 100-meter sword formation is invincible in the preliminary round. The passing candidates stared in admiration. The Xiao family has a lot of background. Casual cultivators will kneel down when they see it. Xiao Yi glanced at Chen and sneered, "Bumpkin, watch out. Your mini-broken sword will be wiped out if it touches my family's magic weapon." On the day of the preliminary round, Xiuxian Arena was crowded with people, and the air was filled with the smell of electric light and the stench of audience sweat. The arena is like a giant beast occupying the arena, and the list is scrolling on the floating screen. Chen versus Li Kuang from the aristocratic family. Li Kuang jumped onto the stage, dressed in a blood robe and hunting, his 9th-level spiritual energy soaring to the sky. "Boy, you dare to come up to my stage? Summon the Blood Shadow Wolf King." Boom! The bag of spirit beasts in the audience exploded, and a 3-foot-long giant wolf pounced out, with a bloody mouth and swollen fangs. The fishy wind hit his face, and its claws were like knives, tearing straight into Chen's chest. The audience screamed, "The casual cultivator is over. The Li family's spiritual beast will swallow 100 people." Li Kuang smiled ferociously, "One wolf will destroy you." Chen hid in the crowd, blood dripping from his fists, and the flying sword roared wildly in his body. "Show it off, I will pierce you through the remote control in the first round." The oath burned in his heart, and he turned and left, his back blending into the morning mist. Chen's eyes were sharp, and a blue light suddenly appeared between his eyebrows. Chen's eyes were sharp, and a blue light suddenly appeared between his eyebrows, tearing through the night sky like thunder. The mini-flying sword buzzed out, the big palm sword slid invisible, and the blue navigation lines swept across the huge body of the Blood Shadow Wolf King like a radar. The shadow of the giant wolf's claws was like a bloody blade, and the fishy wind mixed with the stench of carrion ripped into Chen's chest. The audience in the audience screamed, "The casual training is over. The blood wolf of the Li family, one claw breaks the bones." Li Kuang smiled ferociously, and hunted in blood robes. "Boy, kneel down and lick my boots, maybe I will leave your whole body." Buzz! The flying sword trembles at high frequency and is locked with blue light. The hidden blood core in the right rib of the Wolf King is the weakness of the spiritual beast. With a thought in Chen's mind, the sword dived like a navigation missile, its invisible trajectory cut through the air, and made a sharp whistle. Poof! The explosion of flesh and blood was as loud as thunder, and the tip of the sword pierced the blood core with precision. The Wolf King's huge body froze, and his bloody mouth opened to the extreme, letting out a shrill ghostly howl. Blood sprayed like a spring, filling the arena with a steaming, pungent smell. Boom! The giant wolf smashed into the ground, the stone slabs were cracked like spider webs, and smoke and dust mixed with the smell of burnt blood hit the face. Wanting to rise but then suppressing, Chen stepped back slightly, his shabby clothes were pressed close to his body by the wind, and the aura of the third-level spiritual root was as small as an ant. The candidates from the surrounding aristocratic families roared with laughter, and some sprayed out spiritual juice foam, sour and sweet mixed with blood, trash from the slums. You can't even pull out a sword in front of the spiritual beast. The poor candidates looked pale, and some lowered their heads and murmured, "Brother Yi, hold on, we believe in you." Li Kuang followed the instructions and laughed wildly, "Look how shaken he is." He knelt down in the first battle of the preliminary round. "It's so funny." The whole place was dead silent. Li Kuang's bull eyes bulged, his palms under the blood robe trembled, and the spirit beast bag clattered to the ground. "My, blood shadow wolf king. Kill instantly with one sword. That blue light, what the hell?" The eyes of the children of the aristocratic family in the audience widened. Someone stepped back and knocked over the seat, sawdust flying. "Impossible. Li Kuang's 9th level spiritual root, the blood wolf has swallowed 10, rogue cultivator, how can this country bumpkin level 3 loser?" The poor candidates burst into cheers, tears mixed with sweat, and some knelt down. "Brother Yi Chen. We have hope." The audience was filled with excitement, and they screamed like waves. Flying sword remote control, 1 hit. Yi Chen sheathed his sword, the blue light between his brows disappeared, and he looked at Li Kuang coldly. "Next move." Li Kuang's face turned pale, his knees went soft and he knelt down, his voice trembling like a sieve. "I give up. Spare my life." The old referee's beard was flying. Gao announced, "Yi Chen wins. Full marks in the first battle." At the edge of the ring, poor students surrounded Yi Chen. Some people choked and clenched their fists. "Brother, you have brought blood to the family." Yi Chen smiled lightly, clenching his fist secretly. "It's just begun." The preliminary rounds were in full swing, and Yi Chen kept pace. In the second battle, the opponent, Zhao Meng, from a well-known family, summoned a golden-scaled python. The poisonous mist filled the air like green clouds, and the hissing sound was harsh. The audience covered their noses and coughed. "Rogue cultivators will die from poisoning." Zhao Meng laughed wildly. "The poison of the python rots the bones." The blue light between Yi Chen's eyebrows reappeared, the flying sword circled and scanned, locked on the python's weak vein, and penetrated it with one sword. The python's body exploded, green blood rained down, and the smell of sourness rose to the sky. Zhao Meng vomited blood and fell to the ground. The follower was stunned. Another sword attack. The poor students cheered loudly. Yi Chen is invincible. In the shadows of the darkness, a graceful figure stood quietly, senior sister Su Wan, with an ethereal purple gauze robe and purple light shining in her eyes. The corner of her lips raised slightly, and her jade finger tapped the void. "This boy, the ancestral remote control technique. The 3rd level spiritual root plays with navigation, and has unlimited potential." The jade talisman in her sleeve flashed, and a secret message reached Yi Chen's ears. "Boy, wait for me at the east gate after victory. I will give you the secret method to upgrade the flying sword to the 1st level." Su Wan appeared on the east gate path as promised. The mist was shrouded, and her figure was looming in the fragrance of wild flowers. Yi Chen stepped forward alertly. "Senior." Su Wanmei locked eyes with him, and her voice was like a clear spring. "First place in the written test, 3 consecutive wins in the preliminary round. Flying sword remote control, good seedling." She pressed her jade palm between Yi Chen's eyebrows, and purple light poured in. Buzz. Flying sword technique upgrade, 3rd level, navigation missile. The speed of the sword doubled, and its trajectory was unpredictable. Remember, this technique despises the magic weapon of the family. In the arena of the conference, there are many shady things. Don't underestimate the enemy. Yi Chen's heart was shocked, and the buzzing in the flying sword became louder. "Thank you, senior sister." The winning streak is booming, and in the 4th game, Yi Chen tries his best. Suddenly hearing the ridicule and laughing, Xiao Yi led his followers to block the passage. His golden robe was dazzling and he was surrounded by 3 swords. "You country bumpkin, you have won 3 games in a row. It's just luck." The followers pounced on him, and the 5 of them drew out their magical weapons. Fireballs and thunder nets were blasted, the heat wave was scorching, and the smell of burning was rising. The audience watched. Followers of the Xiao family crushed the casual cultivators. Yi Chen snorted coldly, blue light flashed between his eyebrows. and 5 invisible sword shadows sprang out, like missiles locking, ding ding ding. The magic weapon was completely shattered, and the fragments hit the ground like rain. The followers' arms were bleeding, and they screamed repeatedly, the sword flew into the heart of our weapon by itself. Master, help. Xiao Yi's pupils shrank suddenly, and his hand trembled on the sword hilt. You, invaded again. In the final round of the preliminary round, I will chop you up. He tossed his sleeves and left, leaving the burning smell of anger in the air. In the climax of the final round, Xiao Yi's younger brother Xiao Hen jumped off the stage. The 8th-level spiritual root, 3 family blood swords came out at once. The sword array was like a blood dragon circling, the swords were crying like a ghost, the bloody wind stirred up the dust in the arena, the audience leaned back. Xiao family blood array, swallow the sword and kill people. Xiao Hen smiled ferociously. Big brother said, cut your spiritual roots. The blood sword dived, the sword light tore into the air, boom. The edge of the arena cracked, and the rubble roared like cannonballs. Chen dodged, his clothes were burnt black, smoke and dust hit his face, and the aura of his 3rd-level spiritual root was suppressed. The aristocratic family in the audience shouted wildly, hit me. Kneel down. The poor student's face turned pale. Brother Yi is in danger. The desire to rise is first suppressed to the limit. Yi Chen's mouth corners are slightly raised, Su Wan's secret technique surges, and the blue light between the eyebrows explodes like a star. Feijian's 3rd-level awakening, navigation missile. Buzz. 3 invisible sword shadows shot out, with blue patterns like missile radars, locking on the weak link of the blood sword at high frequency. The first sword, gliding around the formation, ding. The bloody sword trembled and broke, sparks flew everywhere, and the smell of rust arose. Xiao glared, what? My sword is broken. The second sword, dive accelerated, poof. The second sword exploded into pieces, the blood scattered, and the hot blood splashed onto the table. The audience screamed, invisible sword. It's as fast as lightning. The third sword pierced Xiao Huan's eyebrows. His spiritual shield shattered, blood arrows spurted out, and he fell to the ground howling miserably. Brother, his sword can navigate corners. I am no match for him. In the third battle, the iron-armed bear spirit beast roared onto the stage, slapped the ground with its huge palms, stone fragments flew like bullets, and the roar was deafening. Opponent Wang Zhuang smiled ferociously, the bear's arm shatters the mountain. Chen reluctantly retreated, the sword light disappeared behind him, and he navigated the locked core and penetrated. The bear roared like thunder, flesh and blood flew away, and the smell of burnt food hit your nostrils. Wang Zhuang's legs went weak. Monster, your sword can find its own way. The audience looked sideways, and the candidates from the aristocratic families whispered, this country bumpkin has won 3 games in a row. Xiao Yi is going to be furious. The whole place was blown away. Xiao Yi's face was as black as ink in the audience, his fists were bleeding, and his voice was hoarse. Little brother, was reversed by 3 swords. How can this loser know the missile technique? The candidate from the aristocratic family backed away, his legs weak and murmured, the casual cultivator is the only one. Our magic weapon is like paper. The poor student burst into tears and cheered like thunder, Chen champion. The poor people counterattack. The referee shouted, his voice trembled, Chen, the champion of the preliminary round. Go straight to the competition arena. The smoke and dust dispersed, and the smell of blood and rust lingered. Aristocratic family. As night falls, the lights outside the arena are brightly lit, and the smell of aura and electricity is still permeating the air. Chen was walking alone on the path when he suddenly heard a whisper, boy, here. Su Wan's figure appeared, her purple robe reflected the moon, with deep meaning in her eyes. The winner of the preliminary round is famous in Jiangcheng. But in the arena of the conference, there are many shady things. The Xiao family bribed the referee judgment, the spirit beast forbidden technique is hidden, dedicated to suppressing casual cultivators. Do you dare to come? Chen clenched his fists, and the flying sword buzzed. Senior sister, lead the way. I want Xiao Yi's heart. Under the moonlight, two figures disappeared into the mist, and murderous intent loomed. Chen secretly clenched his fists. The breath of the third-level spiritual root was weak, and the chill in the fog was biting. He gritted his teeth and knelt down, tapping his forehead on the bluestone. A dull thud echoed, his knees were bleeding, and the smell of rust hit his nose. Su Wan snorted coldly. The children of the aristocratic family begged me to offer spiritual stones to pile up mountains. What about you? Country bumpkin. She touched the void lightly with her jade feet, and the purple light pressed like a chain. Chen's spiritual sea was in severe pain, like thousands of needles pricking him. Sweat mixed with blood dripped down, and he gasped. Rula bellows, senior sister, Chen, swear to destroy the Xiao family and protect the cultivators on the path to immortality. In the mist, passers-by whispered faintly, that cultivator kneels down to the purple-robed girl. You are bringing humiliation to yourself. How can an ant touch the shady Xiao family? The desire to rise was first suppressed to the bottom, and the corner of Su Wan's lips finally rose, and her jade palm pressed Chen Tianling. Okay. From now on, you are my direct disciple of Su Wan. The flying sword merges with spiritual energy, the fourth level, spiritual energy navigation. Purple light pours in like a river, buzz. The blue light between Chen's brows surged and merged with the purple light. Thunder roared inside the flying sword, the sword expanded in a circle, the blue lines were activated like veins, the high-frequency buzzing caused the mist to disperse, and the smell of electric light was pungent. The spiritual root faintly rises to level 4. The sword speed is tripled, automatically absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The trajectory is as unpredictable as a ghost, and the weak point locking range is expanded by hundreds of feet. Chen stood up, his sword intent soaring into the sky. The shadows of the trees in the mist swayed like surrender. The eyes of passers-by around him widened. Some people retreated and hit the trees. The branches and leaves snapped. Rogue cultivator, apprentice to Su Wan. That blue and purple sword light has merged. What a monster. A poor passerby knelt down and his voice trembled. Brother Yi, apprentice to the fairy, we rogue cultivators can be saved. The mist wraps around the east gate path like a spiritual snake, the moonlight falls, and the fragrance of wild flowers is mixed with the moist smell of earth. Su Wan's purple robe was ethereal, and she turned to stare at Chen, with purple light in her eyes like the abyss of stars. Boy, before you become a disciple, you must prove your heart. The Xiao family's shady secrets, hidden spiritual beast forbidden arts, specialize in suppressing loose cultivators like you. Kneel down, kowtow 3 times, and I will teach you the secret method of fusion. Otherwise, go back to the slums and wait to die. As he walked quickly, the night wind brought murderous intent. Fires flickered in the distant alleys, and screams were piercing. Miss Shen, Master Xiao has the golden order in hand, marry him, and the Shen family will avoid trouble. The cold female voice was like an ice blade. Xiao family dog, get out. Forced marriage? I would rather die. The swords clashed, the smell of blood spread, and the hot blood splashed on the ground. Chen frowned, hiding in the fog and watching, a graceful figure with a white dress stained with blood, dancing wildly with an ice sword, surrounded by 3 black-robed assassins. The swords were like a net, and the fishy wind blew against her face. The leading assassin smiled ferociously. Shen Qingqing, so what if you are the daughter of an aristocratic family? You refuse to marry Xiao Yi, here is the assassination order. Cut his throat with 1 knife. Shen Qingqing's breath was weak, a corner of the ice sword shattered, and silver shavings flew. She bit her lip and stepped back, dripping with sweat. Su Wan waved her sleeves, and the jade talisman flew into Chen's arms. Hold this and find the secret path to my fairy academy. Before the conference, build your power and suppress the evil. Her figure disappeared into mist, leaving the fragrance of purple orchid in the air. Chen clenched his fist, the flying sword buzzed back to his body, his eyes were like a wolf. Xiao Yi, it's your turn to kneel. Buzz. The blue and purple light explodes between the eyebrows, and the fourth level of spiritual energy navigation awakens. The flying sword sprang out, and the palm-sized body slid invisibly. The blue pattern swept hundreds of feet like a radar, locking on the weakness of the heart of the three assassins. The high-frequency buzzing was like a swarm of bees, the spiritual energy was automatically absorbed, and the sword was as fast as lightning. The first sword dive, poof. The blood hole in the chest of the leading assassin exploded, and a geyser of hot blood splashed onto Xiuxian's face. A fishy sweetness filled his nose. His bullseye popped out, and he pressed his hand to his heart and trembled. The sword bends on its own, drilling the heart. What kind of magic? The second sword circled, ding ding. The two assassins' swords shattered, and the fragments fell to the ground like rain. The tip of the sword pierced the throat, Golu's blood bubbles emerged, and he screamed like a ghost. The corpses smashed to the ground with a roar, and the soil flew up mixed with the stench of feces and urine. The third sword was locked on the back, its invisible trajectory was unpredictable, and it went straight into the spiritual sea of the last assassin. The brains burst out, white turbidity splashed on the wall, and the smell of burning began to rise. Passers-by watched with fear. The genius of the Chen family is being hunted by the Xiao family. Leave the cultivators alone, you will die if you get involved. He suppressed his enthusiasm first. Chen appeared, with ragged clothes fluttering. Level 3, no, level 4 aura was vague. The assassin laughed wildly. Another country bumpkin is destined to die. The soul is dead under the knife. Xiuxian's beautiful eyes flashed. Boy, get out of the way. The sword net was blasted, and the smell of cold iron was strong. Chen dodged, his clothes were torn, bloodshot eyes oozed, and he staggered to the ground. The audience laughed. Xiuxian, a rogue cultivator, is done pretending to be a hero. The alleys were dead silent. Xiuxian covered her lips with her hands, the ice sword landed crisply, her beautiful eyes widened, and her fragrant shoulders trembled. You kill 3 times with one sword. Stealth navigation, spiritual energy fusion. Casual cultivator. A passerby leaned back and hit the wall, his legs weak and murmured, the daughter of the Chen family was saved. With that blue and purple sword light, the Xiao family assassins are like paper. A bumpkin. A poor passerby knelt down and worshipped. Brother Yi, your magical skills protect your beauty. 2 figures were sneaking into the dark alleys of Jiangcheng, filled with mist and pungent smell from the sewage ditch. Outside the Xiao family, the iron fence is towering, the red light of the spiritual array is flashing like a will-o'-the-wisp, and the guards are patrolling with clanging footsteps. Xiuxian whispered, the intelligence library is in the backyard, and the forbidden magic volume is hidden in the blood jade. The guard whispered mockingly, a casual cultivator like Chen, dare to come? Master Xiao laughed to death. He suppressed his desire to rise first, but Chen's spiritual energy was small, and when he touched the formation, he exploded with red light, scorching the pain was like fire. He groaned and backed away. His skin was charred and smoking. The guard laughed wildly, intruder. Electric grid. Thunder arcs roared, the smell of electricity was strong, Xiuxian's ice shield shattered, and the fragments stung her skin. Her face turned pale. It's over. Blue and purple light flashed, the flying sword aura navigation was fully activated, and the buzzing high frequency locked the weakness of the formation eye. 3 sword shadows shot out, like missiles swooping down, puff puff puff. The red light collapsed, the iron grid melted and dripped, and the molten iron hit the face with a heat wave. The guard stared, sword, invading the center of the formation. Feijian turned around and killed 3 times with a chokehold. Blood arrows sprayed like rain, splashing on the ground and steaming with hot blood, and the stench rose to the sky. Xiuxian's beautiful eyes flashed in admiration, the fusion technique is amazing. The Xiao family's formation is child's play. The door of the intelligence library opened, and the two men stole the jade scroll, the shady story of the conference arena. The Xiao family bribed the referee and released the forbidden spirit beasts, soul-eating scorpions, to suppress the weaknesses of casual cultivators. Chen sheathed his sword and looked coldly at the pile of corpses. Xiao family dog, get away. Xiuxian stood up, her white skirt was stained with blood. She took a deep breath, the fragrance of ice and snow hit her nose, and the coldness in her eyes softened. Chen. Preliminary champion, flying sword rumor. Thank you. The Xiao family forced me to marry, but I refused, and was assassinated. Join forces. Sneak into the Xiao family's periphery, steal exam information. I know the inside story of the conference, the list of forbidden spiritual beasts. Chen fisted, let's go. On the first day of training, the 5 geniuses' eyebrows and souls were weak, and their swords fell to the ground awkwardly, clanking and breaking, and smelling of rust. They blushed and gasped, no, the spiritual roots are low, the sword won't listen. Aristocratic families passed by and laughed, loose cultivators with big tails. Chen is just lucky, you are rubbish. Chen shouted coldly, kneel down. Feel the spiritual energy. He demonstrated, blue and purple light appeared, the flying sword circled 100 feet, locked on the weak veins of the stone in the distance, and shattered it with one sword. Stone chips came like grazing, and the dust hit your nose. After 5 days of being stunned, someone knelt down and kowtowed, Brother Yi, pass it to us. Chen pointed his eyebrows and injected basic remote control, buzz. The light of their swords first appeared, and they glided invisibly to lock on the target, rattling gravel. Xiuxian raised her lips, the team is ready. The poor Iron Army. After sneaking out, the lights of the slum flickered, and the sour smell of hunger was mixed. Several poor genius candidates sat around, their faces pale, and someone murmured, we failed in the preliminary round, the conference is hopeless, the Xiao family's shady secrets are crushing us. Chen stepped in and threw the jade scroll on the table, here is the information. Alliance, follow me to practice remote control of flying swords. Master Su Wan, I will teach you the basics. The poor student stared, and someone wiped tears, Brother Yi, divine scroll. Let's waste our spiritual roots and practice. Xiuxian glanced coldly, try. Otherwise you will die. On the opening day of the conference arena, the Jiangqing arena was crowded with people, the aura was surging like a thunderstorm, and the smell of electric light was soaring into the sky. The winner of the preliminary round of giant screen projection, Chen's image, attracted everyone's attention. The poor in the audience cheered and the aristocratic family sneered. Xiao Yi jumped onto the stage in his golden robe, with 3 swords surrounding him. He pointed at the poor area with a ferocious smile, Chen. Bumpkin, come up here. I will call your name, chop off your spiritual roots, and sacrifice your blood to my little brother Xiao Hen. In the first battle of the conference, you are dead. The whole place was boiling with murderous intent. Xiuxian held Chen's arm, be careful, the forbidden scorpion is about to. Chen stepped forward, his brows looming blue and purple, his eyes despising the common people. Xiao Yi, kneel down and lick your boots, maybe you will survive. The arena roared like a giant beast, a violent wave of spiritual energy swept across, the air was filled with the burning smell of electricity mixed with the stench of sweat, tens of thousands of people screamed deafeningly, and the giant screen shimmered with auras to project the lottery results. Xiao Yi was hunting in a golden robe, with 3 bloody swords hovering above his head. The blood glow was like a poisonous snake spitting a message. He pointed at Chen with a cruel smile, you bumpkin, I will chop off your spiritual roots in the first battle. Kneel down and offer the sword, and spare your life. The children of the aristocratic families in the audience coaxed. The hall laughed wildly, and someone sprayed wine, dark horse of casual cultivators. It's just luck in the preliminary round. Mr. Zhao's 9th-level spiritual root can be crushed like an ant. The poor area secretly clenched his fists, gritted his teeth and whispered, "Brother Yi. The Xiao family's shady story, the forbidden scorpion is about to appear." The old referee's grey robe fluttered, and he struck with his spiritual staff, boom. The golden characters appeared, first round match, Yi Chen, against the genius of the mid-level family, Qian Lan, the young master of the Qian family. The whole audience fell silent, Xiao Yi's face was ashen, and the blood sword buzzed harshly, "What? Cheating in the lottery? Old thing, I have given you the golden order, how dare you?" The referee's eyes flashed with greed, he secretly pinched the golden spirit stone in his sleeve, and coughed, "The rules are like a mountain, Master Xiao, calm down, you will have a chance in the next battle." Yi Chen stepped onto the bluestone arena in broken clothes, with a fourth-level spirit. The air was as dim as a candle flame, Qian Lan jumped out with a ferocious smile, the level 6 aura came like a mountain, the golden shield in his hand flashed with spiritual patterns, the lion roared on the shield and the shadow roared, the heat wave hit his face mixed with the smell of metal. Yi Chen. Slum garbage, Early Simon, the young master's golden shield is unbreakable, and his flying sword is like an egg. The audience whispered, Qian Lan's shield formation is flawless, the casual cultivator is finished. Shen Qingqing's white dress fluttered, and her beautiful eyes flashed with concern as she held the ice sword. Yi Chen, be careful of the shield spirit's backlash. Qian Lan's shield spun, aura bursting, golden light like a net, stone fragments flying from the arena, dust hitting his nose and dazzling. Yi Chen couldn't dodge, his sleeves were torn, bloodshot oozed out, he staggered to his knees, the spiritual sea was shaken like a hammer, sweat mixed with ash dripped down, and the smell of rust hit his nostrils. The leading genius of the poor team in the audience turned pale, punched the seat and broke it into pieces. "Brother Yi, hold on." The aristocratic family laughed like a wave of laughter, "The bumpkin is on your knees. Mr. Qian, kill him with a shield." Qian Lan laughed maniacally and approached, the golden shield smashed down, and the wind and thunder roared. Buzz. Yi Chen's brows burst into blue and purple light, and the fourth level of spiritual energy navigation awakens. The big flying sword flew out, gliding invisibly like a ghost, humming at a high frequency to absorb the spiritual energy of the world, and the blue-patterned radar swept hundreds of feet, locking in on Qian Lan's shield spirit's weak point, the core of the heart. The sword shadow dives, ding. The golden shield shattered with the lion's roar, and the fragments fell to the ground like rain. Qian Lan's bullseyes popped out, and the shield hilt backfired with spiritual energy. The blood hole in his chest exploded, and the fountain of hot blood splashed on the ground, and the fishy sweetness entered his nose. The sword, wrapped around the shield and penetrated the heart. Impossible. My golden shield. The flying sword circled back and stabbed, its invisible trajectory was unpredictable, and it went straight into Qian Lan's spiritual sea. His brain burst out and splashed with white turbidity. There was a burning smell, and the corpse smashed to the ground with a roar, and the stone slab cracked like a spider web. The arena was dead silent. The referee's old eyes widened, and his trembling staff landed crisply. Yi Chen wins. Advance. The audience leaned back and bumped into their seats, their legs weak, and murmured, breaking the shield with one sword. Invisible navigation, aura fusion. The dark horse defies the sky, the genius of the Qian family is like paper. Cheers erupted in the slum area, and some people knelt down and kowtowed. "Brother Yi, amazing skills. We rogue cultivators have risen." Shen Qingqingjiu covered her lips with her hands, her beautiful eyes shone with admiration, and the fragrance of ice and snow was faint. Yi Chen tacitly escorted me, I will take the lead in the end. Xiao Yi's golden robe bulged, and the bloody sword's blood glow skyrocketed. He roared and crushed the communication jade talisman, scattering golden spirit stone fragments on the ground. Referee, add the second round. By the forbidden psychic beast technique, use the soul-eating scorpion group to lock the weak points of casual cultivators, and destroy Yi Chen's flying sword. A black shadow flashed in his sleeve, and the referee nodded with a secret smile, his eyes as greedy as a wolf. Xiuxian fought for 3 consecutive battles. The ice sword danced wildly like a snow dragon. The opponent's genius family's shield was shattered and bones were broken, and the blood mist was steaming with a stench. Her white dress was impeccable, and she glanced at Chen coldly. "Your sword, I will take over. The dark side is about to emerge, let's join hands." Chen clenched his fists, and his eyes were like knives. "Miss Shen, the poor Iron Army is at your disposal." The poor team took turns to fight. The basic blue light between the eyebrows of the 5 geniuses appeared slightly. The sword formation was weak. In the first battle, the leader faced the opponent of the casual cultivator. The 5 shadows of the sword were invisible. The blood holes exploded continuously. The opponent's corpse was piled with blood and the stench was soaring to the sky. The casual cultivators in the audience stared, and someone wiped their tears and rushed forward. "Brother Ye's team, divine remote control. We low-spirited wastes want to join too." The genius of the team trembled. "Kneel down, Brother Yi, and teach." Chen waved his sleeves, and the basic jade skills flew out. The passers-by from the aristocratic family turned pale, backed away and hit the railing. Rogue Cultivator Alliance. The Xiao family is in danger. Xiuxian raised her lips slightly, holding Chen's arm and whispering, "The power is strong, the intelligence is supplemented." Senior sister Su Wan, an extraordinary person. Her jade talisman has the mark of the abandoned disciple of the Immortal Academy, and was framed by the Xiao family. The source of the forbidden spirit beast technique points to her old enemy. With a cold light in Chen's eyes, he squeezed Su Wan's jade talisman, and the words faintly appeared in blood in the purple light: "Abandoned disciple Su Wan, Xiao family annihilation record." He whispered, "Senior sister has a dark history, and a big crisis is coming." During the discussion, the top 8 draws were golden, and the giant screen flickered. Chen, fighting against Xiao Yi's cronies, the Iron Shield genius Xiao Kuang. Xiao Kuang jumped onto the platform, with an iron shield of level 8 spiritual roots like a mountain, a grimace roaring on the shield, and a sinister wind blowing against his face mixed with the smell of rust. Chen, master orders, the spiritual shield will blast your flying sword. Crush the spiritual roots. The whole place boiled with murderous intent, and the poor team stepped forward with swords in hand. "Brother Yi, our sword formation assistant." Xiuxian's ice sword buzzed. "Join forces." Xiao Yuan smiled ferociously on the stage. "Heartmen, the forbidden scorpions are hiding, you bumpkin, die." The spiritual formation in the arena was activated, the blue stone buzzed with spiritual energy surging like a tide. Chen's rags fluttered, the 4th level aura was tiny. Xiao Kuang's iron shield rotated, his grimace opened his mouth and sprayed out thunder. Boom. The arc of lightning came like a net, and the burning smell of the electric light was pungent. Chen dodged, staggering, and the corners of his clothes burned with black smoke billowing. He knelt down and panted like an ox, and the sea of spirit stung thousands of needles. The faces of the poor candidates in the audience were pale, and someone trembled. "Brother Yi, the shield spirit is too strong." The aristocratic family laughed wildly. "Dark horse kneels down." Xiao Kuang destroys the shield with one strike. Xiuxian's beautiful eyes flashed sharply, and the ice sword was about to move, but was stopped by Chen's eyes. "Watch it." Buzz. Blue-purple light bursts, the flying sword's spiritual energy navigation is fully activated, the high-frequency buzzing is like a thunderstorm, the invisible sword shadow absorbs the spiritual energy, and the blue pattern sweep locks the weak core of the iron shield and grimace. The sword dives like a missile, ding ding. The grimace on the shield shattered, the thunder struck back, Xiao Kuang's bullseye popped out, the iron shield melted and dripped, creating a heat wave. His chest veins burst with blood, and hot blood spurted in Xiuxian's direction. She dodged, and the sweet smell entered her nose, soared, around the spirit shield and struck directly. Fusion technique, God. The flying sword circled, and the second blow locked the throat. Poof. Blood arrows shot out from Xiao Kuang's throat like a fountain, Gula fell to the ground and twitched, and the smell of corpses arose. The third blow was invisible and stabbed back into the spiritual sea, causing the brain to splash white and turbid, and the smell of burnt air filled the air. The referee trembled. Chen wins. The top 8. The audience collapsed and screamed, and some people fell back and fainted. The cronies are like dogs. The black horse sword is invincible, and the Xiao family is panicking. The poor alliance knelt down and shouted, Brother Yi is invincible. Long live the Iron Army. Xiao Yi's face was twisted, his golden robe bulged, and the bloody sword shot into the sky. Chen. Forbidden scorpions, all open. The lights in the rest area were swaying, and the smell of sweat mixed with the scent of spiritual medicine. Xiuxian was close to Chen, her white skirt hugging her body and outlining his curves. She pointed at his eyebrows. Su Wan abandoned the apprentice seal, the old hatred of the Xiao family. She may appear in the finals of the conference. The soul-eating scorpion controls the flying sword and absorbs spiritual energy from its weakness. Join forces to defeat game. Chen held her soft jade hand, his eyes like a wolf. Miss Shen, your ice sword makes up for my sword blindness. Senior Sisters Conspiracy, Xiao Yi, it's your turn to kneel. The team of geniuses gathered around, and they shouted, I swear to death. A giant screen flashed in the distance. The semi-finals, Chen with the unknown dark horse. There is a faint scorpion roar in the air, like a ghost crying, and the omen of blood is filled. After several days of hard training, the slums were filled with the sound of swords and the smell of buzzing electricity. The team's sword formation has just been formed, and the 5 swords are jointly navigating, locking the weak points like a pack of wolves. The leading genius said with a trembling voice, Brother Yi, the alliance will follow you to the death. We will protect you in the conference. Chen stood proudly, his flying sword buzzing. Xiao family, ants. Crush. The spiritual lamp in the rest area flickered like a will-o'-the-wisp, and the air was filled with the bitter aroma of burnt sweat and elixir. 20 iron soldiers from the poor alliance sat cross-legged around, their swords humming and humming like a swarm of bees ready to attack. Their rags were stained with blood, but their eyes were as hot as hungry wolves. In the middle of Chen's cross-legged position, his rags were open to reveal his lean chest. The 4th-level spiritual roots were slowly rotating in the spiritual sea. The fragments of Qian Lan's golden shield and the remnants of Xiao Kuang's iron shield turned into spiritual energy essence, slowly seeping into the blue-violet light group between his eyebrows. Every breath caused the air to tremble slightly, and the electric light faintly moved between his breaths. Brother Yi, chop off the legs of 2 aristocratic families, Qian Lan and Xiao Kuang. The poor Iron Army will become famous tonight, and all the casual cultivators in the city will kneel down and worship. The leading genius of the team's voice trembled, his eyes widened, and stone chips flew on the ground with his palms. The casual cultivators around him clenched their fists secretly and gnashed their teeth. The Xiao family's shady curtain is shattered, the sword array is escorting, and the path to immortality is unimpeded. Xiuxian's pure white dress sat next to Chen, and her ice-like body fragrance mixed with blood hit her nostrils. Her jade fingers gently pressed the veins on his shoulders, and the spiritual energy poured into it like a trickle. Your flying sword, 3 weak strikes, is miraculous. When Qian Lan's shield spirit backfired, the blood hole fountain. My ice sword was half a beat too late. Her beautiful eyes were rippling, her red lips were slightly parted, and her voice was as soft as a spring breeze, but it contained murderous intent. The dark horse in the semi-finals, the intelligence indicates that the soul-eating scorpion has lurked in the spirit formation. Xiao Yi personally feeds the poison, specializing in remote control spiritual energy. Chen's eyes condensed, he squeezed Su Wanyu's talisman tightly, and the blood words floated in the purple light. Senior Sister's old hatred, the Xiao family's annihilation record. After a moment of repair, the spiritual energy is fully integrated. He closed his eyes and started running. Buzz. The blue-purple light between the eyebrows exploded, and the shadow of the flying sword hovered in the spiritual sea. The essence of Qian Lan's golden spirit and Xiao Kuangzin thunder gathered like a whirlpool, and the thunder patterns on the sword's body began to appear. The faint roar of thunder shook the eardrums, and the smell of electric light and burning in the air became stronger. The poor iron army's eyes widened, and the leader murmured, "Brother Ye's sword rises, the fusion of thunder and lightning. The buzzing of our basic sword skills also intensifies." Their swords trembled in unison, the blue light formation expanded like a galaxy, 20 invisible tracks swept the void, and the buzzing sound was like the prelude of a thunderstorm. In the distant family area, Xiao Yi's golden robe was bulging, and 3 blood swords were circling above his head like snakes. His face was livid and distorted, and he punched the armrest and the golden spirit stone shattered into pieces, 2 cronies, like pigs and dogs, corpses. Yi Chen is a bumpkin, the invisible lock of the flying sword is weak, and the soul-eating scorpion is fully open, sucking up his spiritual sea. The black shadow in the sleeves of the old referee beside him squirmed, greedy. His eyes flashed, and he smiled lowly. Xiao Xiaojin ordered his feet, and the spiritual formation was changed in the semi-finals. The scorpions were blind with their swords, and all the flying swords of the casual cultivators were useless. The children of the aristocratic family in the audience laughed and sprayed wine, dark horse. Winning 2 pigs in a row, just luck. Mr. Xiao is at the 9th level, 3 swords chop off the head. In the poor area, his fists were clenched white, and someone roared, "Brother Yi, the Iron Army is here, the scorpions are coming to suppress the sword formation." While taking stock, the aura above the arena suddenly condensed, and purple mist fell from the sky like a tornado, boom. A purple robe fell in the middle of the ring, and senior sister Su Wan appeared. Her beautiful face was as cold as frost and snow, and her jade talisman hanging from her waist flashed the mark of the abandoned disciple of the Immortal Academy. Her long hair moved automatically without wind, and her spiritual pressure was like a mountain, overwhelming the whole audience. Thousands of people screamed and fell back, and their eardrums buzzed and hurt. The old referee fell to his knees with weak legs, and the spiritual staff landed crisply. Senior Su Wan. An abandoned disciple of the Immortal Academy, a taboo of the Xiao family. Xiao Yi's blood sword buzzed loudly, and his face was as white as paper. You were framed and faked your death, how dare you come back?" Su Wan's eyes glanced at Yi Chen, her lips slightly raised, and her voice rolled like thunder. "Yi Chen's disciple, the divine sword protects my old hatred. 10 years ago, the Xiao family bribed the elders of the Immortal Dean to falsely accuse me of stealing the blood spiritual scripture, wipe out my Su family lineage, impose the abandoned disciple seal, and the forbidden spiritual beast technique soul-eating scorpion, which was practiced by ancestor Xiao himself. Suppress the remote control sword." She waved her jade hand, and the purple mist transformed into a blood screen, and the scene from the past emerged. Su Wan's purple robe was stained with blood. Kneeling in the hall of the Immortal Academy, the Xiao family old man was grinning ferociously as a group of poisonous hooked scorpions bit their swords, the bloody and burnt stench hit their noses, the corpses of the Su clan were piled up in mountains, and the scorpion poisonous green mist filled the eyes. The whole place was dead silent. The children of the aristocratic family had their eyes bulging, and some people vomited acidic water. The Su family destroyed the family. The Xiao family's black hand. The source of the soul-eating scorpions. The poor iron army smashed the ground with its fist. "Brother Yi, senior sister, God has revealed the shady story." Yi Chen suddenly stood up, wearing tattered clothes, and the anger in his eyes was as thin as lava. His spiritual sea shook violently, and blue-violet light surged wildly. "The Xiao family, destroy the Su family, harm the senior sister, ban the scorpion and lock my flying sword. Even an ant dares." Buzz. The lightning between the eyebrows exploded, the flying sword came out of the body, the thunder pattern on the big sword body was fully opened, the high-frequency buzzing turned into the roar of thunderstorm, the invisible track absorbed the spiritual energy of the world, the blue pattern radar swept like a thunder net, the arc of the sword tip sizzled and jumped, and the smell of burnt electricity reached the sky. Su Wan's beautiful eyes flashed in praise. "Disciple Lei Rong, you are so advanced." The whole audience roared with thunder, and the giant screen's aura shattered and sparks flew. The audience hugged their heads and ran away, screaming and breaking down, upgraded flying swords. Thunder and lightning navigation, Feijian lock is weak and invincible. Dark horse defies the sky. Xiao Yi's face was twisted like a ghost, and his golden robe was wet with sweat. He roared and crushed the black talisman, "Scorpions, come out." Thousands of scorpion shadows sprang out from under the spiritual formation, green hook poisonous mist sprayed, and the stench was like a rotten corpse assailed his nostrils, blocking the trajectory of the flying sword's spiritual energy. But with a whirl of Yi Chen's sword shadow, the thunder net exploded with a clanging sound. The scorpions were wiped out in ashes, the green blood was steaming and the sour smell was pungent, and the remaining scorpions were twitching and falling to the ground, charred and sizzling. The old referee collapsed on the ground, his greedy eyes trembled with fear. "Senior Su, the shady curtain is withdrawn, the scorpion ban is cancelled." The jade scroll in his sleeve spontaneously ignited and ashes floated away. The aristocratic area was dead silent. Xiao Yi stepped back and bumped into his seat, the blood sword trembling and humming unsteadily. "Thunder sword, the scorpion bite is ineffective." The Xiao family's face. The poor alliance erupted in shouts, and the 20 iron troops knelt down and kowtowed. "Brother and sister Yi," the divine sword exploded with thunder. The Xiao family was severely damaged. Long live the Iron Army. The casual cultivator threw himself on the edge of the ring, wiped his face with tears. The dark horse reveals the secret, reshapes the path to immortality. Shen Qingqing stood up, her white skirt fluttering against Yi Chen's side, her jade arms wrapped around his waist, her red lips pressed against her ear and her warm breath hit his face. "Yi Chen. From the time he saved me in the first round to the time he protected me with his thunder sword, my heart belongs to you. The ice sword makes up for your thunder blindness, and we will reach the top together." Her beautiful eyes were misty, her cold face was stained with crimson, and her voice was trembling like tears. "I love you, Mr. Divine Sword Master." Yi Chen held her soft waist and looked at Xiao Yi with contempt. "Miss Shen, I will guide you with my heart. The family is like dust, and I am the only one on the path to immortality." He returned the sword to his body, the lightning was faint, and the spiritual root was faintly upgraded to the 5th level. He took stock of the results of the battle. Qian Lan's golden soul tempered the sword body, Xiao Guangxin thunder melted the thunder patterns, the poor army expanded to 30, Master Su supported it, and the shady curtain was shattered. The golden light of the giant screen flourished, and the list of the top 4 emerged. Yi Chen was first, Shen Qingqing was second, Xiao Yi was reluctantly third, and the unknown dark horse was fourth. The whole audience cheered thunderously, and the morale of the poor erupted like a volcano. Some people tore their clothes and shouted, "Brother Yi is the champion." The dream of a casual cultivator. Yi Chen put the sword into his body, the blue-violet light disappeared, and he stood proudly by the stage, scorning thousands of people. "I am an ant from an aristocratic family, I am the only one on the road to immortality." The whole place was silent, admiring eyes surged like a tide, the sword formations of the poor alliance moved in unison, the buzzing shook the sky, and the smell of electric light filled the sky. Xiao Yi pinched the talisman secretly, the black scorpion shadow squirmed under the spiritual formation, the poisonous hook flickered, and the crisis was like a net that quietly tightened. Suddenly, the aura of the giant screen distorted, and the golden words of the lottery appeared. Semi-finals, Yi Chen, versus the master of the hidden family, the hidden veins of the Mu family, Mu Ting. The whole place fell silent, and a figure in black robes slowly rose from the side of the ring. Mu Ting's face was expressionless, and he held the ancient jade in his hand. Boom! The ancient magical weapon, swallowing heaven cauldron, appears in the world. The mouth of the cauldron is as black as an abyss, swallowing hundreds of feet of spiritual energy. Thunder twists and pulls, and the rusty smell in the air is mixed with the tearing roar of the void. Mu Ting's eyes were as cold as ice. Yi Chen, the divine sword. The sky-swallowing cauldron swallows all the magic, the flying sword enters the belly, and there is nothing left. Xiao Yuan smiled sinisterly, Mu Jiayin's master, the true form of the dark horse. You bumpkin, it's a dead end. Su Wan twirled her purple robe and sent a message to Yi Chen, the dark horse in the semi-finals, extraordinary. A master from a hidden family, hiding an ancient magic weapon, invisible to lightning. Senior sister secretly protects her. She disappeared into mist and left, leaving the purple fragrance. Yi Chen clenched his fists and stood proudly in the light, scorning thousands of people. Xiao Yi, it's time to kneel down. The sword array of the poor iron army buzzed, and the smell of lightning and thunder filled the air. The spiritual energy in the sky above the arena is like a lead cloud pressing down on the top. The mouth of the black hole of the heaven-swallowing cauldron buzzes and twists. The roar of the void is like the cry of 10,000 ghosts. The rusty and astringent smell mixed with the burning stench of the devoured spiritual energy assaults the nostrils. The air within 100 feet is like a whirlpool. The sword array of the poor iron army trembles with blue light. The invisible track breaks intermittently. The sword body emits a low-frequency buzz like a whale, as if it is about to be pulled into the bottomless abyss at any time. Mu Ting hunted in black robes, his expressionless cold eyes locked on Yi Chen. He flicked his jade fingers, the ancient cauldron rumbled, and black mist rushed like tentacles, locking the blue-purple thunder light between his eyebrows. Bumpkin, divine sword thunder pattern. Devouring the sky and devouring souls, all methods will be lost. Tens of people in the audience held their breath, their eardrums were buzzing and hurting from the sound of the cauldron. Some people covered their ears and looked back, their faces as pale as wax. Yi Chen's tattered clothes clung to his sweat-soaked back. The spiritual sea was churning at the edge of his fifth-level spiritual root. The phantom of the thunder-marked flying sword was circling in his mind but could not escape. The pull of the heaven-devouring cauldron was like a 10,000-kilogram iron hook pulling at his heart. The smell of rust in his breath was strong and pungent. The veins in his fists bulged. He gritted his teeth and roared, ancient magic weapon. Devouring souls are invisible. The poor iron army leader's eyes were rounded, his legs were weak and he knelt down, his voice trembling like the wind. Zhu, brother Yi, the linkage of the sword array is broken. This cauldron swallows 100 feet of spiritual energy, all our basic sword skills are useless, and the iron army can't hold on. The swords of the 30 iron army around him all fell to the ground and jingled. The blue light was as dim as a broken candle. The blood-stained teenagers looked at each other in despair, pinching blood with their fists. Some people cried, the dark horse's dream is broken. The hidden vein of the Mu family, the trump card of the aristocratic family, the casual cultivator will never turn around. Shen Qingqing's white skirt was bulging, and the ice sword was buzzing but was frozen in the air. She held Yi Chen's arm tightly with her fingertips were bone-chilling, her beautiful eyes were filled with water mist, her voice was trembling and crying, Yi Chen. The ice sword is useless to fill the position, the tripod swallows the thunder blind, and I, the genius of the Shen family, also kneel down. Join forces, to hold on until the referee stops. A ferocious laugh broke out in the family area of the audience. Xiao Yi shook his golden robe, and 3 bloody swords, the bloody light danced wildly on his head, and he punched the armrest and gold shards flew out. His face was twisted like a ghost. Mu Ting. Swallow his flying sword and chop off his head as a blood sacrifice. The bumpkin defeated 2 pigs in a row. It's just luck. The 9th-level spiritual root crushed him. The disciples from the surrounding aristocratic families sprayed wine into the hall, and their bull's eyes breathed fire, the dark horse of casual cultivators. The sky-swallowing cauldron specializes in destroying remote control, and there will be no scum left. Young Master Xiao joins in, let's kneel down and lick him from the poor alliance. The old referee's sleeves and robes were trembling, and his black eyes turned from greed to fear. He held his spiritual staff high but his voice was weak. The semi-finals, begin. Mu Ting's magic weapon complies with the regulations, ancient relics. Yi Chen, wish you all the best. The spiritual array buzzed and locked the ring, and the residual scorpion green mist resurrected from the ground. Thousands of hooked tails squirmed and filled the nostrils with a fishy smell. The green poisonous mist filled the air like corpses, locking the trajectory of thunder patterns and corroding. The black hole of the Tian cauldron expanded, and 100 feet of spiritual energy poured in. Chen's spiritual sea was in severe pain, and the blue-violet light group between his eyebrows was twisted and elongated. The flying sword entity barely escaped from the palm-sized body. The high-frequency thunder buzzed but was wrapped in the black mist. The sword tip struggled and jumped with arcs. The smell of thunder and lightning was mixed with green poisonous acid and rot, and the lines on the sword body were faintly peeling off. Buzz! Mu Ting pinched his jade fingers, and the black tentacles of the ancient cauldron whipped wildly, jingling. The flying sword thunder net exploded but collapsed instantly. The blue and purple fragments fell into the mouth of the cauldron like meteors. The devouring sound was like the crunch of bones and flesh of a giant beast. The whole place was dead silent. The poor leader of the Iron Army sat paralyzed, tears mixed with blood sliding down his cheeks, and murmured in despair, "Brother Ye's sword is broken. The Iron Army is dead, and the path to immortality is over." Xiuxian's ice sword shattered in the air, and his jade body stumbled into Yi Chen's arms. His cold face was pale and bloodless, and his red lips were trembling. "No. Mr. Divine Sword Master, don't fall." Xiao Yi laughed wildly and smashed the table with his fists. "Swallow the sword. Mu Ting, chop him into pieces, sacrifice his blood to his relatives and enemies." Yi Chen knelt down on his knees, his rags torn to reveal a bloody chest. The spiritual sea was as empty as a dry well, and nosebleeds dripped onto the arena and evaporated. The anger in his eyes was like molten lava, and he whispered Su Wan's jade talisman, "Sister, secret method, bite the cauldron." The jade talisman's purple light flashed slightly, and the sound was transmitted into his brain. "The swallowing cauldron is weak, the cauldron's ear spiritual core. Multi-wire remote control, thunder pattern separation, detonating the inner formation." Yi Chen gritted his teeth and stood up. The edge of the spiritual root was wildly lucky. Buzz! The remaining blue-violet light between the eyebrows explodes, the fragments of the flying sword are reorganized in the spiritual sea, the fifth layer of thunder patterns are fully opened, the lightning navigates 3 times the sword speed, the ghost trajectory is unpredictable, and the weak point of Baizhang is locked and automatically absorbs the spiritual energy. "Drink!" His eyes burst with lightning, and the multi-line operations in his mind expanded like a cobweb. 30 invisible sword shadows sprang out from the Iron Army sword. Using the basic sword formation of the Poor Alliance to link up, the thunder buzzed at a high frequency and became the prelude of a thunderstorm. The sword shadow did not enter the mouth of the cauldron and penetrated directly into the hidden gap in the cauldron's ears. Mu Ting's cold eyes shrank, and his black robe bulged. Multiple lines of shadow. "Impossible, the bumpkin controls 30 swords." Ding ding dang dang. The sword shadow thunder network implodes, the cauldron's ear spiritual core sizzles with electricity, the black hole twists and shrinks, the smell of rust turns burnt and pungent, the ancient cauldron wails like a dragon and breaks, and the spiritual energy of 100 feet spurts back. The Poor Iron Army suddenly raised its head, and the leader's bull eyes bulged, and his voice changed from despair to ecstasy and trembled. "Brother Yi. Lend us the sword formation, multi-threaded thunder shadow." The buzzing of the Iron Army's swords intensified, and the tripod's ears shattered. The swords of the 30 Iron Army vibrated together, and the blue light reconnected the galaxy. The teenagers smashed their fists into the ground, and shouted in tears, "God control. The Poor Iron Army, assist the Black Horse and I. God." Xiuxian's beautiful eyes widened, her body scented with ice and snow, her voice soft and sobbing, "Ji Do Ancient. Lei Fanning Lok Kor, you are my God." Xiao Yi's blood sword was trembling, his golden robe was sweating, and his face was pale and twisted. "Mu Ting. Multi-wire remote control, what's wrong with the casual cultivator?" Mu Ting squeezed the jade secret with his fist, the ancient cauldron tilted with a roar, and the black mist spurted back like a fountain of blood. He took 3 steps back, his black robe torn to reveal his pale arms, and he roared, swallowing the sky, implosion. Chen stood proudly, hunting in tattered clothes, the flying sword between his brows returned to his body with a thunderous roar, the spiritual sea absorbed the backlash spiritual energy and increased it to 5 levels, and the sword pattern was fused with gold and thunder. Mu Ting, the magic weapon of the family, is like an ant toy. Buzz! The main sword sprang out and locked onto the weak point between Mu Ting's eyebrows. The lightning net exploded, the remaining scorpion's green mist disappeared into ashes, and the green blood steamed with a sour smell rising into the sky. Mu Ting's jade talisman shattered, and the ancient cauldron shrank into his sleeves. He knelt down and vomited blood, his voice hoarse and frightened. "I give in. The core of the heaven-swallowing cauldron is shattered, and the Mu family's hidden veins surrender." Thunder broke out in the audience, and the poor iron army rushed to the ring in kowtowed. The leader hugged Chen's leg and cried, "Win in the semifinals. Multi-line divine control, the iron army will always follow." The casual cultivators tore their clothes and roared, and the giant screen shone with golden light. Chen advanced to the finals. The old referee announced the verdict with weak legs, and the spiritual staff landed crisply. Xiuxian circled Chen's waist, her red lips pressed against her cheeks and she breathed warmly, "I love you." Jiong, climb to the top. But in the cheers, the air suddenly condensed, Xiao Yi crushed the black talisman from the distance, and the golden light transmitted the spiritual array to the whole audience. Xiao family order. The poor alliance has blocked resources, and the supply of elixirs and spirit stones has been cut off. Join forces with Qian Mu's remnant veins to suppress the dark horse of rogue cultivators. Night falls in Jiangcheng, the lamps in the poor rest area are dim, the iron army is sitting cross-legged and hungry, the swords are buzzing weakly with no spirit, the leader's face is livid, and his fists are cracking on the ground. Brother Yi beats Mu Ting, all resources are blocked. The aristocratic families join forces, the elixir is broken, the sword array is exhausted. How to win the final? Hunger in the air, the sour smell filled the air, and someone cried, "The dream of the dark horse is broken again." Chen's eyes were cold, and he held Su Wan's jade talisman with purple light. "Senior sister, the secret path." The jade talisman sent a message, enrolled in the fairy academy, except for the finals champion, the talisman proves the shady story. Raid the Xiao family branch, recruit the defected disciples, strong iron army. Let's go. Chen shouted in a low voice. 30 iron troops hunted in rags, escorted by sword formations with invisible thunder and buzzing, and sneaked into the Xiao family branch in the eastern suburbs of Jiangcheng at night. The Helm Gate spiritual array buzzed, the golden spirit stone piled up and the elixir smelled fragrant, and the guarding family's dog legs and bull eyes sprayed wine. "Poor pig, dare to come. Xiao Xiaoling, chop." But there was a buzz. Chen's flying sword sprang out in multiple lines, the thunder shadow chain was weak by 30, the blood hole was jingling and the fountain was splattering, and the brain was splattered on the ground with a stench. The iron army rushed in, and the sword formations coordinated to sweep away. The defecting disciples heard the news and surrendered. 10 abandoned sons of the Xiao family knelt down and kowtowed. The leading young man trembled, "Brother Ye's divine sword. The shady plot of the Xiao family has suppressed our spiritual roots. We rebel. Offer 300 elixirs, and the iron army will expand to 40. The face of the poor iron army turned pale, and the leader trembled, "Brother Yi, an ancient magic weapon, there is no solution for swallowing souls." Xiuxian's ice sword buzzed, and he squeezed Chen's hand, "Join hands." The green mist of the remaining scorpions faintly revived under the spiritual formation, the crisis tightened like a net, and in the smell of thunder and lightning, a bloody battle was about to break out. The poor leader's eyes widened and his voice trembled with ecstasy, "Conquer the traitors." Resources poured in, and the sword array thundered and exploded. The elixir entered the body, and the Iron Army's aura revived, buzzing like a thunderstorm. Xiuxian's white dress floated up, the golden talisman of the Shen family flashed, and she pointed at the spirit array. My father ordered, the Shen family escorts. Resources are unlocked, ice and swords are combined with thunder, the finals are worry-free. Her beautiful eyes were rippled, and Yi Chen's ears were filled with warm breath. The family intervenes for you. Lang Jun. On the eve of the finals, on the avenue outside Xiuxian Arena, Yi Chen patrolled the sword formation alone, thunder humming and humming. Suddenly, mist filled the air, the fragrance of flowers mixed with blood hit the nostrils, and the magic array quietly started. His eyes narrowed, and the flying sword shot out, but its trajectory was twisted. The pain in the spiritual sea was as sharp as the pricks of thousands of needles. Xiuxian's figure in a white dress appeared in front of him, with red lips murmuring, Lang Jun, come. But when the sword shadow was revealed, the phantom shattered, revealing Xiao Yi's black robe with a sinister smile, must kill trap. Illusion Heart Scorpion Array, soul-eating upgrade, the spiritual sea is trapped forever. The green mist locked the body, and Yi Chen was trapped in the illusion of the boundless sea of blood, with intermittent thunder, crisis like a net, and darkness engulfed. Darkness pours like ink, and the sweet and rotten smell of the sea of blood penetrates directly into the nasal cavity. Yi Chen's soul feels like it is being torn apart by thousands of hooks, and every heartbeat is accompanied by the hissing of the green scorpion phantom, which is as sharp as iron nails scraping bones. In the boundless blood waves in front of her, Xiuxian's figure in the white dress floated up and down. Her red lips squirmed and whispered, Mr. Sir, save me, but they turned into scorpion tail hooks within reach, and the green poisonous juice corroded his phantom arms, and the pain burned his real body like fire. In the back of his mind, Xiao Yi's ferocious smile echoed like a ghost whispering, You bumpkin, the soul-eating scorpion array is upgraded, and the 9th level spiritual root crushes your 5th level garbage. The spiritual sea will be trapped in the sea of blood forever. On the eve of the finals, I will be a scorpion dung forever. Yi Chen fisted his head was bleeding, and his nails dug into the palms of his hands, which smelled like rust and mixed with blood. He gritted his teeth and roared, his spiritual sea was tumbling on the edge of exhaustion, and the phantom of the thunder-marked flying sword trembled to pieces. Illusion, the weakness is reality. Xiao Yi, you ant, you are playing dirty tricks. Despair was overwhelming like a tide, the sound of the poor Iron Army's desperate pursuit was intermittently heard in his ears, and Xiuxian's hot breath turned into scorpion poison and cold. His heart sank, the Iron Army expanded to 40, the resources were revived, and the Shen family's golden talisman escort was all destroyed in this night. No. Senior Sister Su Wan's jade talisman's purple light flashed in the spiritual sea, and the heart-eating art whispered, the illusion of the heart breaks the spell, and the sword guide is really empty. The thunder in Yi Chen's eyes ignited, and the spiritual sea was in severe pain, and his brain waves expanded like a spider web, the 5th layer of thunder patterns were fully opened. The multi-wire remote control does not lock the enemy, drills directly into the source of the phantom formation, automatically locks the weak point of 100 feet, the ghost trajectory glides silently, and the thunder and lightning navigation sword buzzes at 3 times the speed and turns into a heartbeat rhythm. Buzz. The blue-purple light group between the eyebrows exploded, and the fragments of the mini-flying sword reassembled into the palm-sized body, invisible and sprang out of the spiritual sea. The tip of the sword jumped with arcs, the smell of rust and blood was mixed with the smell of burnt thunder, and the golden and thunder lines on the sword body shone like a galaxy. Ding! The first sword shadow pierced the shadow of the blood sea, the green scorpion phantom exploded, green juice sprayed and sourness hit the nose, vacuum ripples spread, and the blood wave stagnated slightly. Yi Chen's mind was shocked, the real and the virtual are intertwined, and the formation is at the core of the mist on the avenue. He roared at the edge of the Lux spirit root, and the spiritual sea absorbed the phantom energy and counterattacked. The second line, the third line. 30 sword shadows linked up with the Iron Army at a distance, invisible from the night wind, and locked into the mist vortex. The sword shadow thunder network imploded, the sizzling electric sound was like thousands of insects burning, the green mist twisted and shrank, the illusion of the sea of blood was like shattered glass, and the fragments reflected the real scene of the tree-lined avenue. Xiao Yi stood in the center of the array with a fierce smile in black robes, surrounded by 10 killers in green robes wrapped in mist. Hook-tailed scorpion blades buzzed. Xiuxian's true body was tied up with green silk and hung in the tree crown. Her white dress was stained with blood, her jade body trembled and her red lips were bleeding, and her beautiful eyes were closed unconsciously. Broken. Yi Chen's real body jumped out of the darkness, his tattered clothes wafting with the sour smell of blood and sweat. The main body of the flying sword thundered and exploded, and the 100-foot-long thunder net locked on the killer's weakness, the sea of soul between the eyebrows. The leader of the killer, the big man in green robes, had his bullseyes bulging out. He swung the hook blade wildly to protect the body with green mist, but the trajectory was distorted. His voice changed from a grin to a trembling fear. Shattered magic array. Multi-threaded ghost sword, this bumpkin. How can I break my Xiao family's upgrade to soul eating? With a continuous clang, the shadows of 10 swords penetrated the green robe, and the bloody whole fountain splashed the ground with fishy hot brains. The green poison self-destructed and the stench of rotten flesh rose into the sky. The corpse fell to the ground like a rotten melon. Xiao Yi's golden robe retreated, the top of the head of the 3 blood swords trembled and the blood glow dimmed. He squeezed the black talisman in his fist and twisted his face to turn pale. Impossible. The scorpion formation consumes the spirit sea. Your spiritual root is at the 5th level, and you can control 30 hidden swords. Yi Chen stood proudly in the shadows of the forest, and the flying sword between his brows returned to his body. The poor Iron Army arrived after hearing the news. The leader's eyes were round and bloodshot, and his voice was ecstatic and trembling like thunder in the wind. Brother Yi breaks the illusion array. All killers are destroyed, and the Iron Army swears to die, will follow you forever. The swords of the 40 Iron Army shook the blue light galaxy. The teenagers punched the tree trunks and cracked them, shouting with tears mixed with blood, the black horse will not die. The Xiao family's trap, backlash. Yi Chen waved his sword, cutting off Xiuxian's green silk. The jade body fell limp in his arms, her cold face was pale and bloodless, the scent of ice and snow hit her nose, and her nose was bloody. He gently stroked the jade back and whispered, "Xiuxian, wake up. Join forces to destroy Zhao's core." Xiuxian's beautiful eyes slowly opened with mist. Permeated, her jade hand clenched his arm, her fingertips turned cold and hot, her voice was soft and sobbing, "Mr. Lang, save me from the scorpion poison, the divine sword navigates through the illusion, you are my god. The Shen family's ice sword, kill Xiao as you please." The night wind howled, Yi Chen's eyes were cold, and the purple light flickered in his hand. Su Wan's jade talisman, senior sister, where is Xiao Core? The jade talisman transmitted the voice into his mind. On the west mountain of Jiangcheng, in the secret cave of the Xiao family, the shady jade slips are hidden in the spiritual array. The truth about the abandoned disciple. The Xiao family trapped me in fake death, and forbidden blood oaths. Revenge, for you. Yi Chen's heart felt hot, and Su Wan's abandoned disciple mark was as painful as a teacher's favor, and he shouted, "The Iron Army is divided into 3 teams to escort, the Chen Alliance is established." The poor Iron Army expands its neutrality and collects the treasure left by the Scorpion Killer. The leader kowtowed in tears, his voice worshipping like a fanatic, "Chen Alliance." Yi Gu, the leader of the alliance, the god-controlled Yongzuan. The Iron Army rushed away from the trees, the sword array thundered and escorted. Yi Chen glided with Xiuxian's hidden sword, the ghost track went straight to the west mountain, the blood moon hung high in the night sky, and the fishy wind blew against his face. The golden light of the spiritual array at the entrance of the Xiuxian secret cave flashed, and the guarding family's dog legs sprayed wine and laughed ferociously. The poor pig attacks at night. Xiao Xiaoling, chop the sea of spirits. Buzz. Yi Chen's multi-threaded sword shadow shot out, thunder and lightning were locked at 3 times the speed of 30, clanking blood arrows spurted brain matter, and the stench of corpses was filled with blood. Xiuxian's ice sword filled the position, the cold air froze the cracks in the spiritual formation, and the white mist was like a tornado. Her beautiful eyes were reflected with thunder, and her voice trembled with excitement. Lang Jun Lei Binglian, Shao cave is shattered. The two of them broke into the cave together. The aroma of elixirs was piled high in the cave, and the jade slips were suspended in black light, the shady story of the college entrance examination. The Xiao family controls the enrollment of the Fairy Academy, bribes the referees, suppresses the quota of casual cultivators, and joins hands with the Mo Qianmu in the actual written examination. Yi Qinyu pointed to Jian, the spiritual sea absorbed the black light evidence, the golden thunder pattern exploded, he punched the jade platform and cracked it, the Xiao family and, the shady story of the immortal road, shattered. The alarm bell sounded loudly in the depths of the cave, and the neutral forces of the Xiao family heard the wind. 20 disciples with low spiritual roots looked at each other hesitantly. The leader of the grey-robed boys' eyes widened, and his voice trembled from fear to ecstasy. Yichen Divine Alliance. The shady evidence is in hand, we neutralize Xiao. The Chen Alliance expands, with 10 blood swords and 50 elixirs. Xiuxian wore a white dress. Bulging, the ice sword buzzed to protect the formation. She covered Yi Chen's shoulder with her jade hand and breathed hotly, the Chen Alliance is strong. All the poor neutrals have been taken in, and they are invincible in the finals. The Iron Army rushed to join, 40 iron troops plus 20 neutrals, the sword array thundered and buzzed like a sea of stars. The leader clasped his fists and shouted in tears, the alliance leader's plan. All the resources of Xiaoku are plundered, and Chen Alliance's hundreds of people join forces with thunder and ice. Purple mist suddenly appeared, Su Wan's pale face appeared, her black hair was disheveled and stained with blood. She pressed Yi Chen's eyebrows with her jade hand, and poured the heart-devouring technique into the spiritual sea like fire, disciple, the truth behind the abandoned disciple. The old hatred of the Xiao family, senior sister was the pride of the Fairy Academy in the past. Xiao Yi's father framed the blood oath, and faked his death for 10 years. Now the shady story is revealed, and revenge is your divine sword protector. Hers purple eyes were filled with mist, and his voice was hoarse and weeping, heart-devouring lock Xiao Ling Hai in the finals, senior sister secretly escorts. Yi Chen held senior sister's jade hand, blood boiling, senior sister's kindness, I will repay you. Su Wan nodded and disappeared into the mist, and the purple incense remained in the cave. The Iron Army kowtowed in neutral, and the voice shook the sky in worship, the master teaches the law. The Chen Alliance slaughters the family, and the only alliance leader on the path to immortality. At dawn, the Jiangqing arena is crowded with people. The spiritual energy of thousands of people surges like ocean waves. The smell of sweat and alcohol mixed with the fragrance of elixirs fills the nostrils. The giant screen shines with golden light, the final, Yichen vs Xiao Yi. The poor area roared, and the Chen League's 100-man sword formation was escorted by the Blue Thunder Galaxy. The leader's eyes were spitting fire and tears, the leader has reached the top. The dark horse defies the sky. The family area was dead silent, Qian Mu's face was sallow, and someone whispered and trembled, the Chen League is strong, and the shady story is passed down to the head of the academy, Xiao Yi, is it over? Xiuxian's white dress was pressed against Yi Chen's arm, and her red lips whispered hotly, Lang Jun, I love you. Ice and thunder eats the heart, champion of the immortal academy. The old referee raised his spiritual staff high, his voice was weak and his legs were weak, the finals, begin. The spiritual formation buzzed and locked the ring, the setting sun poured out the bloody light, Xiao Yi's golden robe hunted and jumped onto the platform, the blood light danced wildly on the head of the 3 blood swords, his twisted face grinned like a ghost, you bumpkin, so what if the shady curtain is broken? The Xiao family's treasure, the blood soul flying sword, come out. Boom! The golden box shattered, and the Baijiang blood sword came out. The ghostly face on the sword body was swirling with thunder and blood patterns. The spiritual pressure was like a mountain collapse. Thousands of people's eardrums were buzzing and they were leaning back. The smell of blood and decay was soaring into the sky. The sound of the sword was like the cry of 10,000 ghosts, locked in the center of Yi Chen's eyebrows. The whole place was dead silent. The leader of the Chen alliance was bleeding from his fists, and his voice was filled with despair. The treasure. Alliance leader, break it with divine control. Yi Chen's eyes exploded with lightning. He hunted in ragged clothes, the mini flying sword sprang out to expand in multiple lines, the prelude of the thunder net devoured his heart and he roared, the crisis was coming again like a net. The blood soul flying sword was like thousands of ghosts breaking loose, the 100-foot-long sword body twisted and roared with grimaces, the dark thunder and blood patterns swirled like a red poisonous dragon, and the spiritual pressure was like a landslide and tsunami hitting the center of the arena. The air instantly twisted into a vortex of blood mist, and the fishy and rotten smell mixed with rust and blood hit the nostrils. Thousands of people's eardrums buzzed like lightning strikes. Candidates from poor areas had weak legs and knelt down, and the smell of sweat mixed with fear and urine flowed directly into the nose. Xiao Yi hunted in golden robes, with a distorted face and a ferocious smile like Shura. His 9th-level spiritual roots exploded with blood and shot into the sky. 3 blood swords merged into the top of his head and injected into the treasure. His voice echoed around the audience like a ghost, "You bumpkin, 5th-level rubbish spiritual roots. The blood soul treasure locks your brows and soul, and devours your soul with one breath. The aristocratic family will crush you, and the poor will always be a mole. Ant, kneel down and lick the soles of my feet." The sound of the sword was sharp and piercing the brain, the grimace opened and closed to swallow the thunder, locking the blue-purple light group between Yi Chen's eyebrows, the electric arc jumped and engulfed the spiritual sea, the heat wave burned the ragged hunting clothes, Yi Chen's figure was shaking in the blood mist, and the mini flying sword trembled and hummed low, as if it was about to break. The whole place turned from dead silence to boiling and collapsed, and the family area laughed like a wolf howling. "Young Master Xiao, the treasure is out. The dark horse is dead, the blood soul will eat the soul without any solution." Xian Mu's old face was sallow and twisted, his fist hit the armrest and cracked, his voice was hoarse and trembling. "Okay. Chop his soul, see, retribution, shady revenge." The Qin Alliance's 100-man sword formation, Blue Thunder Galaxy, was dim. The leader's bullseyes were suddenly bloodshot, his throat was rolling like iron sand, and his voice was tearing with despair. "Leader. Blood soul in thunder pressure, divine control. Hold on." The poor candidate burst into tears. There was a muffled sound as fists hit their chests. The teenagers looked at each other pale, sobbing and sweating. "It's over. The Iron Army swears to death is useless, the treasure is crushed." Shen Qingqing clenched her jade fist in her white dress, her nails embedded in the palm of her hand and blood rolled down. Her beautiful eyes were filled with water mist, staring at Xiao Yi. Smiling ferociously, his voice was trembling and weeping. "Mr. Lang, the ice sword is with you, don't lose." Su Wan's jade talisman shimmered purple in Yi Chen's arms, and the heart-eating secret art whispered like a master's grace echoing in the sea of spirits. "Disciple, the blood soul is weak in the ghost face and blood core, true and false prediction, the divine sword turns into a dragon." The crisis was like a net pressing down on his head. Yi Chen's tattered clothes were stained with blood and the sour smell hit his nostrils, the edges of the exhausted spirit sea were churning with golden thunder and dull pain. He fisted the bleeding threads and smelled of rust, gritted his teeth and growled, the blue and purple light group between his brows shrank, and the flying sword fragments buzzed and reorganized. The 5th layer of thunder patterns were fully opened. The brain waves explode like a spider web. The multi-wire remote control does not lock the sword body, and predicts the trajectory of the blood soul directly, and the ghost's weak point automatically locks the blood core of the ghost face. Buzz! The mini flying sword glided out invisibly, the thunder and lightning navigation tripled the speed of the sword and the high-frequency buzzing turned into a heartbeat rhythm. The Iron Army and the Qin Alliance cooperated with hundreds of swords to draw on the strength. 30 sword shadows and thunder nets expanded silently. The arc of the sword tip combined with gold and thunder to twinkle in the galaxy. The smell of rust and blood was pungent with scorched thunder. Bite! The first sword shadow pierced the shadow of the blood mist. The blood lines on the ghost's face were slightly stagnant and distorted, the sinister thunder exploded and the smell of burnt flesh filled the air, and the blood soul's sword body shook as if it had been struck by an electric shock. Xiao Yi's eyes widened, and the golden robe took half a step back. The top of the blood sword's head trembled and the blood glow dimmed. He twisted his face, turned pale, and smiled stiffly. Predict the trajectory. The multi-threaded ghost sword, break my blood soul protective net. Impossible, how can the 5th level garbage lock the weak point of Baizhang? The audience gasped, and the laughter in the family district stopped. Someone knelt down with weak legs and murmured, God control. The blood soul is stagnant. The leader of the Qin Alliance punched the ground and trembled with ecstasy, the thunder net gnaws the core, and the iron sword burrows it. Invincible. The poor candidate screamed in tears and punched his chest, which was stained with blood. Dark horse is not dead. Divine sword navigation, Xiao Yi is gone. Yi Chen stood proudly in the middle of the blood mist and sneered, Xiao Yi, the treasure of the family, is like child's play. The second line, the third line. The 30-sword shadow thunder network imploded, the blood mist exploded with jingling sounds, and the vacuum ripples spread. The blood core of the ghost face was exposed and beating red, the sizzling electric sound was like thousands of insects burning, the blood soul sword body shook violently and leaned back, and the dark thunder collapsed and the fishy wind hit the face. The duel between the two swords broke out, Xiao Yi roared and his blood roots exploded, the 3 blood swords danced wildly above their heads and merged into the treasure, the blood souls flew into the sky and circled around Yi Chen, locking on Yi Chen's body, the ghostly face was smashed with thunder and blood streaks like a net, the stone slab of the arena was cracked, smoke and dust rose into the sky, the swords screamed and the ghosts cried deafeningly. Yi Chen's eyes explode with lightning, the mini flying sword expands the thunder net in multiple lines, the ghost trajectory glides to predict every blood arc, the sword shadow uses the star alliance of the Qin Alliance to link up, and the triple navigation speed locks the weak point and stabs continuously. Ding ding ding. The blood soul protective net shattered the blood cave fountain, the grimace wailed and twisted, Xiao Yi's face was ashen and he pinched the black talisman with his fist, blood soul merged. 9th level crushing, swallow his spiritual sea. Boom. The body of the blood soul sword shrunk 100 feet into the body, the golden robe exploded and blood light shot into the sky, Xiao Yi transformed into the blood soul human sword and merged into one, a ghostly face appeared on his forehead and thunder circled, the spiritual pressure doubled and the mountain collapsed, the blood claws grabbed out the air-tearing wind and bit Yi Chen's eyebrows. The climax was like a thunderous explosion. Thousands of people leaned back and their ears were ringing with blood and mist covering the sky. The leader of the Qin Alliance was choked with sobs and despair reignited, combined, the treasure has no solution, Alliance leader. Shen Qingqing's jade body rushed forward and the ice sword buzzed in an attempt to help, but was blocked by the spirit. The white skirt bulged after the burst, and her beautiful eyes flashed with tears and her voice tore, Lang Jun, heart-eating and breaking. Yi Chen's soul sea was in intense pain, Su Wan's second turn of the heart-eating technique was filled with purple light, her teacher's kindness burned like fire, sea of gold and thunder merged it surged, and he growled and held the jade talisman, sister, the divine sword protects you. The flying sword, transforms into a dragon. The blue-purple light group between his eyebrows swelled, and the many flying sword fragments and thunder patterns all melted into the palm, and golden thunder scales grew on his body, buzzing at a high frequency. The dragon's roar shook the sky, the sword's head opened its mouth and the thunderball condensed, the ghost of the dragon's body 100 feet glided out, the multi-threaded 30 shadows transformed into the dragon's tail galaxy, the aura of the blood mist was automatically absorbed and exploded, and the smell of rust, burnt thunder, and blood mixed with blood hit the entire audience. Ong! The thunder dragon roared and tore through the blood mist. The dragon's claws locked onto the weak point of Xiao Yi's combined blood core. The triple navigation predicted the trajectory of the Yin thunder. The dragon's tail thunder net imploded with the help of Qinmeng's 100 swords. The bullseyes of Xiao Yi's blood soul human form bulged out, and his grimace twisted and screamed in fear, transform into a dragon. The golden thunder eats my heart and locks my spiritual sea. No. The dragon's head swallowed the thunder ball, and the arc of electricity penetrated into the blood core. 3 liters of blood spewed out, the blood claws broke, and the fountain flew backwards to the side of the ring. The sea of spirits was blindly devouring and howling like a wild dog. I admit defeat. Bumpkin, Shenlong, please spare my life. The whole place was shocked and boiling, thousands of people's spiritual energy surged, sweat, stinky wine, alcohol, elixir, and fragrance filled their nostrils in confusion, and the giant screen flashed with golden light. Chen wins. Championship locked. The Chen Alliance's 100-man sword formation, the Blue Thunder Galaxy, erupted. The leader knelt down and kowtowed with tears streaming down his face. His voice trembled with ecstasy like thunder. The Alliance leader transformed into a divine dragon. The blood soul was shattered, and the ants of the Xiao family were destroyed. The eternal master of the Chen Alliance, God controls the path to immortality. The poor candidates roared with tears, and the teenagers hugged each other and punched their bloody chests. The dark horse has reached the top. The poor are against the sky, the aristocratic family is gone. The aristocratic family area collapsed in silence. Some people's faces were sallow and their legs were weak, and Qian Mu's old eyes were staring. Yuan murmured in fear, champion, the shady story is shattered, the Xiao family is finished. Shen Qingqing's white dress flew into Yi Chen's arms, her jade arms wrapped around her waist and she clung to him with hot breath, ice and snow, body fragrance, blood and sweat. Her red lips covered his ear softly and she sobbed, Mr. Lang, the dragon loves you. The champion fairy garden, the Shen family will be conquered by you. Yi Chen caressed the jade back, glanced at Xiao Yi with cold eyes, climbed up like a cadaver dog, and sneered, Xiao Yi, the powerful are as dust. I am the only one on the road to immortality. The old referee's spiritual staff trembled and his legs weakened. He raised it high and announced in a weak voice, Yi Chen. National Immortal College Entrance Examination, champion of the competition arena. Go straight to the top Immortal Academy. The whole place roared with a tsunami, and the poor areas roared like a volcano. The leader of the Chen Alliance Iron Army clasped his fists tearfully shouting, Long live the Alliance leader. The mighty dragon soared, slaughter the family. The purple light of Su Wan's jade talisman flashed in her mind and she heard the message, disciple, good. The revenge of old grudges, the conspiracy of the Fairy Academy, beware. Yi Chen's heart froze, and when he was about to respond, the empty spirit boat and gold in the arena as the light fell, the admission officer of the Fairy Academy appeared with a pale face in a white robe. Black mist loomed around him, and his voice was gloomy and echoed like a ghost, Champion Yi Chen, admitted to Xiuxian Academy. However, the evidence of the shady jade slips, the Xiao family is only the tip of the iceberg. Inside the Fairy Academy, blood is forbidden. Vow to revive, the truth about Su Wan's abandonment is waiting for you to be revealed in the hospital. The whole place was silent, the blood moon was high, and the wind was rising again. Yi Chen's eyes flashed, and he held Shen Qingqing's jade hand and whispered, Come on, divine sword, sweep across the path of immortality. The blood moon tilted over the arena, and the golden light of the spirit boat poured down like a waterfall. The admission officer of the Fairy Academy hunted in white robes. The black mist around him was like an ink python, and a faint smell of rotten smell hit his nostrils. The old face was sinister and twisted, and his eyes were locked on Yi Chen like a ghost fire. His hoarse voice echoed and the eardrums of thousands of people were buzzing. Yi Chen, the champion, went straight to Xiuxianyuan. But the shady jade slips of the Xiao family. The forbidden blood oath was revived, and the truth about Su Wan's abandonment was revealed. The whole place was as silent as a tomb, and the smell of blood and blood was stagnant in the world. The noble boys in the family district looked at each other with sallow faces and soft legs, their throats rolled like poisonous sand, and someone whispered and trembled, "Infiltration of demonic cultivators. The Xiao family colluded with the outside world. The Fairy Academy is rotten." The poor examinee fisted the bloodshot and rusty smell, and the leader of the Iron Army of the Chen Alliance had bloodshot eyes, and his voice was torn. Roaring, "Alliance leader! The demon cultivator conspired to kill him with the divine sword." Xiao Yi's golden robe was torn to pieces and stained with blood. He stood up and trembled like a disabled dog. The ghostly face on his forehead was distorted and frightened. His knees hit the ground and the stone slab cracked. "Admissions officer. Rao Zhao's family, country bumpkin Shenlong. I was wrong." Yi Chen stood proudly in the center of the ring, with the sour smell of hunting blood and sweat in his tattered clothes. He glanced at Xiao Yi's corpse dog with cold thunder eyes. Holding Shen Qingqing's jade hand, the warm breath, ice and snow blended with the fragrance of his body. He smiled and scorned, "Xiao Yi, a powerful ant, the shady curtain is shattered, kneel down." Boom! A group of blue and purple light flashed between the eyebrows, the fragments of the mini flying sword were reorganized with thunder patterns, and the palm dragon body sprang out and glided invisibly. The ghost trajectory tripled the navigation speed to quickly lock the remaining core of Xiao Yi Linghai. The Baijiang Thunder Network silently expanded through the linkage of the stars of the Chen Alliance. The golden thunder scales of the sword shadow dragon tail flashed across the galaxy. It automatically absorbed the blood mist spiritual energy and exploded to a huge extent. The dragon's roar was deafening and the smell of rust and burnt thunder was pungent. Xiao Yi's eyes widened and he was out of his wits. His blood roots were dried up and he was in intense pain. He screamed and twisted with a grimace, "God, lock me with the divine sword. Spare my life, the Xiao family is dedicating all the resources of the family." The whole audience gasped, the aristocratic district screamed and collapsed, and the stench of someone's urine and mixed blood went straight into the nose. Xianmu Kanmai's old face was defeated and he smashed the handrail with his fist and smashed it to pieces. "The Xiao family is finished, the collusion of the demon cultivators was exposed, and the divine control crushed it." The blue thunder of the Chen Alliance's 100-man sword formation erupted, and the leader of the Iron Army knelt down, kowtowed and shouted in tears, "The Alliance leader is powerful. The aristocratic family kneels down and licks, the dragon dominates." The enrollment ceremony broke out, the golden light of the spirit boat descended on the arena, the Fairy Academy admissions officer waved his spiritual staff, and the giant blood-red jade slip projection spread. The Xiao family bribed the referee to suppress the black screen calendar, Qianlan and Muting's corpse flashed with blood holes in the brain, the phantom heart scorpion array green mist flew away, and the records of the plundering of golden spirit stones and elixirs from the secret cave were carved like knives. Su Wan's jade talisman's purple light sent a voice in her head like a teacher's heart burning, "Disciple, all the shady evidence has been passed to the head of the academy. Father Zhao's old hatred, the forbidden blood oath hooked up with the demon cultivator from the outside world, and the ghosts in the immortal academy are waiting to be slaughtered." The heat wave of the jade talisman poured into the spiritual sea, and the second turn of the heart-eating technique exploded with purple light and golden thunder. Double fusion, Yi Chen growled and held the talisman, "Sister, repay the favor with the divine sword." With a flick of his sleeves, the black jade slip flew out to absorb all the evidence. Blue and purple thunder light penetrated the giant screen, the evidence of the Xiao family's crimes expanded like thousands of insects gnawing at the bones, and the rotten demonic energy loomed in the projection, and the demonic shadow laughed ferociously. The whole place boiled and collapsed, and the poor candidates burst into tears and punched their chests with muffled blood stains. Shadow is shattered. God controls justice, poverty defies heaven. The noble girl from the aristocratic family screamed and covered her face, the young men knelt down with weak legs and sweating like rain, and some people sobbed, the Xiao family is destroyed, the demon cultivator has infiltrated, we are finished. Xiao Yi crawled like an insect, spitting blood and blood, you bumpkin, no, Yi Xianzuan. The Xiao family bows its head, and the whole family has tens of millions of gold spirit stones, 50 blood swords, and hundreds of bottles of spiritual elixirs. I'll give it to you. His fingers trembled and the black talisman exploded. The Xiao family's spiritual seal broke and the blood oath collapsed. The old man Qianmu with residual veins was the first to kneel down, his sallow old face pressed to the ground and the smell of earth hit his nostrils. His voice was weak and trembling, the Qian family follows Xiao, Yi Guanjuan, spare your life, the shady story has nothing to do with it. Mu Ting's hidden veins represented a kneeling shadow projected in the distance, and the Tianshan cauldron hummed in pieces and admitted defeat, the Mu family bows down, Lord Shenlong. The family area collapsed. Half of the noble sons kowtowed, waves of sweaty and stinky aura surged, and the giant screen shone with golden light, the family bows its head, resources are sacrificed. The admission officer of the Fairy Academy's face was distorted by the thick black mist, and his spiritual staff struck the ground with thunder, Yi Chen, admission to the Fairy Academy. The shady secrets are clear, the conspiracy of the demon cultivator, enter the hospital for slaughter. Yi Chen sneered and the dragon body of the flying sword hovered above his head, and the thunderball swallowed and locked the kneeling figure of the aristocratic family, the powerful are like dust, I am the only one who is the only one. Donate your resources, get out. The Iron Army of the Chen Alliance roared with joy, and the leader, Niuyan, burst into tears and clasped his fists, divine power of the Alliance leader. Receive the traitors from the famous families and expand the Iron Army. Half of the poor candidates came, and the teenagers hugged each other in tears, roared and punched their bloody chests, come in, the Alliance of Chen. Take control of the gods to fly, slay the demon cultivators. The Alliance of Chen expanded instantly by 300s, the thunder-buzzing galaxy sword formation, blue thunder soaring to the sky, borrowed Yi Chen's multi-line divine control, 300 sword shadow phantoms glide by Zhang weakness locking and automatic linkage, the elixir gold spirit stone blood sword spirit pill piles up the mountain, Iron Army swallowing spirit pills basic recovery foundation flying sword buzzes at high frequency, and the galaxy rotates like a dragon's tail escort. The leader knelt down to offer his plunder, Alliance leader, plunder all the slums. 300 iron troops swear to death, and the divine sword will always follow. Yi Chen's eyes swept the whole place, and the mini-flying sword turned into a dragon and hummed, absorbing the aura of the sacrifice and exploding into golden thunder scales. The voice echoed with thunder, the Chen Alliance is expanding, and the poor Iron Army is slaying the evil spirits of the family. Follow me on the path to immortality. Shen Qingqing's jade body was pressed against Yi Chen's chest, her heartbeat was like a deer hitting her nose, her hot breath hit her nostrils, her body fragrance of ice and snow mixed with blood and sweat, her red lips covered her ears softly and she sobbed softly, her voice was trembling and charming, Master, the dragon is supreme. A pure heart belongs to the Shen family. Fu Chuanjia, ice sword and thunder will follow you to the hospital, I will love you for the rest of my life. The jade finger embedded in his arm and blood rolled down, the rusty smell of the nails mixed with hot tears, the mist of her beautiful eyes locked onto Yi Chen's thunderous eyes, the ice sword buzzed and the blue thunder and gold scales hovered above her head. Yi Chen caressed the jade back as hot and smooth as jade, and whispered at the corner of his lips, Qingqing, we are side by side in the Fairy Academy. The divine sword protects you. The audience looked sideways, and the Iron Army of the Chen Alliance roared, Mrs. Ice and Thunder God match. Congratulations to the Chen Alliance. The poor teenagers laughed and laughed at each other, Black Horseman plus Fairy Shen, a match made in heaven for the poor. Shen Qingqing buried her blushing jade cheeks in his arms, confessing that she had succeeded in burning herself in the heat. The golden light of the spirit boat flourished, and black mist enveloped Yi Chen, the admissions officer, Shen Qing, and hundreds of leaders of the Chen Alliance took off into the sky. Thousands of people roared in the Jiangqing arena, and the smell of sweat, stinky wine, and elixirs filled their nostrils in confusion. God controls the path to immortality. Long live the Chen Alliance. The boat sailed through the sky, the spiritual energy surged, and the purple light of Su Wan's jade talisman flashed, and the voice was heard like a master weeping, "Disciple, the demonic cultivators from the outside world of the Fairy Academy have infiltrated, and the forbidden blood oath has been revived. The truth about Zhao's father's demonization, Su Wan's fake death, and the head of the courtyard is suspected of being a ghost. The heart-eating technique is ready for the third turn, and the divine sword locks the core." Yi Chen's spirit sea shook with gold, thunder, and purple light. He held the jade talisman and shouted, "Senior sister, kill the demon." On the way, the spiritual boat passed through the clouds, looking at the golden roof of Xiuxian Academy floating in the sky, and the black mist loomed like a demon python entrenched in the mountain gate, and the smell of rotten demonic air and rust and blood wafted through the nose. The admissions officer Tsang Yan's white fingers trembled. The demonic cultivator's veins have penetrated into the bones. Yi Chen, be careful of the aristocratic families in the courtyard, colluding with the demon shadow. Shen Qingqing's jade fist clenched the ice sword and buzzed, her beautiful eyes alert. Lang Jun, escorted by ice and thunder. The spirit boat landed at the mountain gate of Xiuxianyuan. The blood moon hung high in the shadows of the golden roof. The lanterns in the freshman registration hall were swaying like will-o'-the-wisps. The air was stagnant and spiritual pressure was like a net pressing down on the roof. The stench of sweat mixed with the demonic odor was pungent and pungent. Yi Chen proudly walked into the hall, his tattered clothes stained with blood, and his mini flying sword hiding the blue and purple sound between his brows. In the hall, new students in golden robes from aristocratic families were surrounded. A young man smiled ferociously and had teeth like a wolf. The 9-level spiritual roots exploded and the red flame sword array hovered above his head. His voice echoed with ridicule, "You bumpkin, a dark horse in the college entrance examination." In the Xiuxian Academy, the remnants of the Xiao family admire the 3 lines of Qian, and the devil cultivators secretly support you. Kneel down and lick the soles of my feet, otherwise the spirit sea will chop you off. His hands referring to the red flames locked between Yi Chen's brows, the sharp sound of the sword piercing the brain and the heat wave burning the clothes. The aristocratic family in the palace laughed wildly and howled, "The new dog is coming. The magic flame burns the soul, crushes the poor." The bull's eye of the iron army of the Chen Alliance was suddenly about to move. Shen Qingqing's ice sword was about to come out. Yi Chen sneered and thunder shot out, the remnants of the aristocratic family. The divine sword, shatter. Buzz. The mini flying sword sprang out, and the golden thunder scales of the transformed dragon grew, and the thunder dragon roared and tore into the air. Rust and scorched thunder smelled into the sky. The deathly silence in the palace turned to collapse. The young man from the aristocratic family glared wildly. The red flame sword array shook violently. The dragon-tailed thunder net imploded with the help of the Iron Army Galaxy. The ghost trajectory predicted the weakness of Baizhang and locked the demon flame blood core. The sizzling electric arc drilled the flesh and filled the air with rotten smell. A fountain of blood foam rolled in his throat. "God. Shenlong. Forgive, ah." The dragon-headed thunderball spit out soul-devouring sea blinds. The young man's body flew backwards and smashed into pillars, stone chips and smoke, and the bloody hole in his brain spattered to the ground and filled his nostrils with fishy heat. The freshmen of the aristocratic family knelt down with weak legs and urinated. They looked at each other pale and sobbed, "Destroy the remnants of the demonic cultivators. Yi Xianzuan, have mercy on your life." The Iron Army of the Chen Alliance roared and kowtowed. The alliance leader is admitted to the hospital to slaughter the family. The divine control of the Immortal Academy is the only one. Shen Qingqing put her arms around her waist and breathed hot into her nose. "Mr. Lang is so powerful, the new students worship you." Su Wanchuan, the voice was urgent, "Disciple, okay. The demonic shadow in the courtyard is bigger, the core of the blood oath, tomorrow the sword discussion stage, wait." Chen held the jade hand and swept the kneeling shadow coldly, and the flying sword dragon chanted in the hall, "Conspiracy? Come. The path to immortality is sweeping, but I am Chen." The blood moon flashed with blood, and the evil energy secretly surged into the corners of the hall like a python, and the fishy wind rose again. The smell of blood in the palace was as thick as rusty slurry, mixed with stone dust, and urine, pungent to the nostrils. The knees of the new students of the aristocratic families hit the ground with muffled sounds. Sweat rolled down like rain from their sallow faces, their throats rolled as they swallowed blood foam, and some people whispered and trembled. The divine dragon killed the 9th-level red flame in an instant. The brains of the remnants of the demonic cultivators were splashed on the ground. We are finished. 300 figures of the Iron Army of the Chen Alliance surged in front of them. The blue thunder of the sword formation buzzed at a high frequency, and the leader's bullseye bloodshot eyes suddenly fell to his knees. First, the voice was tearing and roaring, "The Alliance leader is admitted to the hospital and the first battle is to kill the family. Divine control and power shake the fairy courtyard, and the Iron Army will escort it to the death." The poor freshmen hugged each other and roared in tears, punching their chests with blood stains and making a muffled sound. Chen League takes flight. Poor and defiant, the divine sword is the only one. Shen Qingqianjiu's arms were tightly wrapped around Yi Chen's waist, her breath was hot and her nose was filled with the fragrance of ice and snow. Her beautiful eyes were locked with mist and admiration, and she whispered softly, "Lang Jun, one sword will determine the world, I will worship you in the Xiuxian Palace, the Immortal Academy is yours." Yi Chen stood proudly in the center of the pile of corpses, with the sour smell of hunter's blood and sweat in his tattered clothes, his cold thunder eyes scanning the kneeling figure, the miniature flying sword dragon's body hovering above its head, the golden thunder scales flashing and whispering, automatically absorbing the remaining spiritual energy in the palace. Its palms expanded, the dragon's body stretched by several feet, and the ghostly trajectory of the thunderball flickered. He smiled contemptuously, "The remnants of the aristocratic family are as powerful as dust. Kneel down and offer your resources, get out." Buzz. The fragments of the flying sword reorganized and multi-threaded shadows emerged. The blue-purple thunder network used the Iron Army's galactic linkage to lock the weakness of the kneeling spirit sea. The sizzling arc predicted the 100-foot slide and penetrated silently. The young people from the aristocratic family screamed and collapsed. The spiritual seal on their foreheads broke and the blood oath disintegrated. The smell of burnt flesh filled the air. Someone crawled like an insect and vomited blood. Yi Xianzuan. Thousands of golden spiritual stones, 10 bloody swords, 50 bottles of spiritual elixir, all offered, spare your life. The rotten demonic aura emanated from the corner of the palace, and the family area chain knelt down, resource jade tokens flew out and piled up like a mountain, and the waves of golden aura surged. The elder in charge of the registration hall, with his grey robe and grey beard fluttering, stared at the bloody hole in the corpse's brain, his throat was rolling, his old face was pale and trembling, the dark horse of the college entrance examination. Shenlong instantly killed the genius in the hospital. The red flame demon of the family helped the remnants, and Yi Chen went straight into the inner door. With a wave of his spiritual staff, the blood-red projection of the gold list spread, Yi Chen's name thundered and exploded on the champion's throne, thousands of lights and ghosts in the hall swayed and buzzed, and the poor new students roared with ecstasy. Inner sect. Divine control leads the poor to slay demons. The elder handed the jade card with trembling fingers and injected heat into the spiritual sea. Inner sect token, the resource library is fully opened. Tomorrow's sword forum, freshman challenge. Be careful of the aristocratic families joining forces. Yi Chen took the card and sneered, and the flying sword dragon tail galaxy swept across the resource pile, automatically absorbing the golden spirit stone's aura and exploding the scales to grow. His voice echoed with thunder, "Challenge. Come. I am the only one who dominates." At night, the blood moon tilts, and the golden roof of the mountain gate of Xiuxian is covered with shadows. The black mist of the magic python is entrenched, and the smell of fishy rot is faint. The lights of the new dormitory flickered, and 300 people from the Iron Army branch of the Chen Alliance rushed into the poor area. The blue thunder of the sword array was soaring into the sky, and the high-frequency buzz was linked to Yi Chen's divine control. The leader Xiuxian burst into tears and clasped his fists. "Leader." The Iron Army was admitted to the hospital and strengthened by 500. The aristocratic families sacrificed gold spirit stones and piled warehouses. The blood sword spirit pill revived the whole army and flew swords. Demon-slaying cultivators, swear to death. The poor teenagers swallowed the spirit pill. The spiritual sea exploded, and the flying swords buzzed like dragon tails escorting each other. They pushed each other with tears and smiles. God-controlled alliance leader, the poor Iron Army swept across the fairy courtyard. Shen Qingqiu touched Yi Chen's chest with her hands as hot and smooth as jade, and her red lips covered her ears and said coquettishly, "Lang Jun, the Chen alliance is powerful. Qingqing will accompany you, and the ice sword will join the thunder." The blue thunder and gold scales on the top of her ice sword head whispered, and the hot breath of her body burned her heart. The purple light of Su Wan's jade talisman flashed in her mind, and her voice was like a teacher crying, "Blood, disciple, good." The head of the hospital received the certificate, the shady story was exposed, and Su Wan was reinstated as the teacher. The third turn of the heart-eating technique was unlocked, and the spiritual sea, gold, thunder and purple light were combined. The Forbidden Land demon shadow, the remnants of the Xiao family colluded, and the recruitment and massacre plots. Sneak in late at night, I will open a secret path. Yi Chen's spiritual sea was shaken, and the heart-eating technique turned purple for the second time. The light burst expanded and absorbed the sacrificial spiritual energy. The third turn prepared gold thunder scales grew and the dragon's body stretched 2 feet. The blue and purple thunder lines between the eyebrows opened to 5 levels. He shouted and held the talisman, "Senior sister, the divine sword protects you." With a flick of his sleeves, the black jade slip flew out and penetrated into the jade talisman. The full certificate merged with the demonic cultivation veins and projected into his mind. Zhao's father transformed into the core of the blood oath, and the demonic shadow from the outside world penetrated the head of the hospital. The next day at the sword discussing platform, the blood moon hung high and the spiritual pressure was like a net pressing down on the top. Thousands of people surrounded the place, and the smell of sweaty elixirs and the scent of the elixir filled their nostrils in confusion. Geniuses from aristocratic families were surrounded by golden robes and grinned ferociously. A young man's teeth were as fierce as a wolf. The 9-level fire spirit root exploded. A red flame phoenix hovered above his head and burned the sky with heat. His voice taunted and pierced his brain, "Country bumpkin." A dark horse in the college entrance examination. In the courtyard challenge, Xiaomuqian's 3 veins teamed up with demons. "Kneel down and lick my young phoenix's feet, otherwise the spirit sea will be burned." He pointed his fingers. Yi Chen's brows were locked with red flames, the sound of the sword was sharp and the smell of thunder was rising to the sky. The aristocratic family district was laughing and howling, "The new dog is crushing. The magic flame is killing the soul, and the poor are dead." The Chen Alliance Iron Army's bullseye suddenly moved, Shen Qingqing's ice sword was about to come out, and the poor freshman pinched his blood-threaded fists and smelled of rust, whispering in despair, "Aristocratic families join forces with demons, can the divine control suppress them?" Yi Chen looked at the ragged clothes, his eyes were cold, and he smiled contemptuously, "A powerful ant, a phoenix?" Shattered. Buzz. The mini flying sword emerges from the center of the eyebrow, and the golden thunder scales grow into a 3-foot-long dragon body. The lightning navigates 3 times the speed of the sword, and the ghost trajectory is hundreds of feet. The weak point is locked and automatically absorbs the spiritual energy under the stage to explode. The multi-line shadows are linked with the Chen Alliance's 500 galaxies. The Dragon Tail Thunder Network silently expands, and the golden and thunder double fuses the heart-devouring lock core. The young man's eyes widened and his soul was blown away. The red flame phoenix violently exploded, sizzling arcs drilled the heart, and the rotten smell of flesh filled the air. There was a fountain of blood foam in his throat. God, divine dragon's prediction. Rao, ah. The dragon's head thunderball swallowed up the soul-devouring sea blind, and the corpse flew backwards and smashed into stone chips, smoke, dust, brain matter, and blood holes splashed on the ground. The whole place turned from deathly silence to collapse. The geniuses of the family fell to their knees and urinated. They looked at each other pale and sobbed. One dragon sweeps and joins forces with the devil to support. Yi Xianzuan, spare your life, give all the resources of the three veins. The 500 Chen alliance roared and kowtowed, the leader swept the challenge. The Divine Control Immortal Academy is the only one, long live the Iron Army. The poor new student burst into tears and punched his bloody chest. The dark horse slaughters the family. The poor man is born. Xiuxian appeared in purple robes after being reinstated. Her jade-faced and cold-looking spiritual staff touched the ground with thunder, and her voice echoed loudly and clearly, Yi Chen, personally taught by the instructor. The heart-eating technique is unlocked in the third turn, and the flying sword is promoted to the immortal level. She pointed her jade finger at the center of Yi Chen's eyebrows, and purple light poured into the spiritual sea. The golden thunder explodes, the body of the mini-flying sword dragon stretches 5 feet and is filled with fairy light. The scales grow and the fairy pattern thunderball swallows and sublimates. It glides invisibly at 6 times the speed of multi-threads and thousands of shadows automatically link the heart-eating blind core. The brand new fairy-level buzzing dragon roars and shakes the sky. The rusty fairy fragrance is astonishing. Su Wanmei's misty eyes turn to Shuran, disciple, the divine sword is at the immortal level, slay the demon. Yi Chen roared and tried the move, the fairy sword sprang out and locked onto the distant demonic shadow to test, and then imploded silently and flew away. The whole audience gasped, and the aristocratic family knelt down and trembled. Immortal level divine sword. The Immortal Academy has changed. Afternoon is soothing, the resource library is filled with gold spirit stones, blood sword spirit pills are devouring it, Yi Chen's spiritual sea is stable at level 5 and is expanding to the edge of level 6, and the fairy sword is absorbing it in a low voice. The Iron Army of the Chen Alliance revived after swallowing pills, and the flying swords buzzed with high-frequency galaxies to escort them, and their momentum expanded into thousands of troops. Shen Qingqing's jade body was close to her, and her red lips kissed her cheek warmly, Lang Junxian level. Qingqing loves you, and the ice sword will follow. In the forbidden area late at night, Su Wan's secret path opened. The black mist was as pungent as a python's rot. Yi Chen and Shen Qingqing sneaked in to join forces, the fairy sword slid invisibly 6 times the navigation lock was weak, and the ice sword's blue thunder merged with the fairy scales to break the formation silently. Deep in the forbidden cave, the demonic shadow of the remnants of the Xiao family is projected with a sinister smile. The admissions massacre map, the core demonic cultivators of the blood oath jointly planned a blood sacrifice for thousands of new people, and the demons from the outside world have their veins penetrated into the bones. The remnants of the party stared with wild eyes and discovered that the demonic flames erupted into a heat wave and burned the sky. Bumpkin. Kill. Yi Chen sneered and the fairy sword turned into a dragon and swept across. The dragon's tail and the thousands of shadows in the galaxy imploded and splashed brains. Shen Qingqing's ice sword sealed the demonic energy. Mr. Lang, you are so fast. The evidence was absorbed by the jade slips, and the conspiracy was fully exposed. Su Wan's purple mist suddenly appeared, her jade hand pressed between Yi Chen's brows, and the secrets of the Fairy Academy poured in like a trickle. The heart-eating formula in the finals can lock the enemy's spiritual sea blindness. The senior sister is secretly protecting her, and the shady evidence has been passed to the head of the academy. The purple fragrance remained, and she dissolved into mist. The morale of the Iron Army was like a volcano, and the 40-man sword array expanded into a galaxy. Yi Chen stood proudly in the night wind and despised the flames of the eastern suburbs. The Xiao family's rudder is broken, and the ants and powerful people are just my way to immortality. Deep in the forbidden cave, the blood moon ghost light pours out like rotten blood, the cracks in the stone wall are like squirming python scales, the demonic energy is violent and fishy like rotten corpses, and the sea waves of juice are rushing to the nostrils, and the pressure is so thick that the air is as thick as rust slurry. The old demonic figure in black robes grinned ferociously, its blood-sworn grimacing face twisted and squirmed, and it emitted a sharp ghostly cry that ripped through the brain. Its spiritual pressure was like the top of a mountain being crushed, and stone fragments on the ground were shattered and smoke was choking its throat. Blood light burst out from the devil's palm, and the stench of rotten bones rushed straight into the spiritual sea. Zhao's father revived and the demon from the outer realm resounded with a hoarse and sinister smile, "My son, the divine dragon immortal level. The blood-sworn sacrifice of eternal life, the demon king from the outer realm has been admitted to the spiritual sea. I offer my head tonight, immortal courtyard blood pool." Blood palms swept across, ghostly faces and bloody teeth bit into the air and the heat and rotten waves burned her body. Xiuxian's jade-faced white ice sword was shattered by the earthquake. The jade arm ring around Yi Chen's waist trembled with heat. His beautiful eyes were filled with mist and he whispered desperately, "Lang Jun, the devil, the pressure is too heavy, the clear spirit sea is broken." Su Wan's purple robe hunted, the spiritual staff broke with thunder, the old blood fountain dyed the robe, the throat rolled and turned pale and trembled, "Disciple, retreat." The third turn of the blood oath in the outer world, the heart-devouring backlash. Cave the iron-blooded roar of thousands of troops of the Xiuxian alliance shook the sky, and the high-frequency buzzing of the blue thunder galaxy was about to break through the black fog. The leader's bloodshot eyes burst out, and he kowtowed and howled wildly, "Alliance leader. The devil is overwhelming, the Iron Army's galactic linkage is powerless. The poor are cut off. Yi Chen hunts with broken clothes, bloody sweat, sour odor, the spirit sea, gold, thunder, purple light, double fusion, heart-devouring three-turn violent shock collapses on the edge, the 5-foot dragon body of the fairy sword is panned, the fairy light is dim, the scales are scorched and cracked, and the thunderball swallows weakly and whispers. His knees sank slightly and the stone shattered, his thunderous eyes swept away the demonic shadow, and he swallowed the blood in his throat and growled lowly, "The powerful devil, the ants are like dust. Outland. Shattered." The entire cave was dead silent, Xiuxian's jade-like hands were clasped tightly and were as hot as jade, trembling and whimpering, "Lang Jun. Can't hold on." Su Wanmei's eyes were full of tears, and she cried, "Blood, Excalibur, don't show off." The leader of the Chen alliance stared at the fog, and the poor iron soldiers hugged each other in despair and punched their chests with blood stains. "The leader of the immortal level can't suppress it. The Immortal Academy is dead." Buzz. The devil's palm is filled with blood and rotten bones, the ghostly face and bloody teeth bite Yi Chen's eyebrows, and the putrid heat wave burns the soul and blinds him. In an instant, Yi Chen smiled contemptuously, the blue and purple thunder lines between his eyebrows opened to 6 levels and exploded, and the third turn of the heart-devouring art unlocked the purple light, gold and thunder, and the spiritual sea exploded to the 7th level. The heat wave of the inner gate token is injected into the resource library. Tens of thousands of gold spirit stones, blood swords, and spirit elixirs pile up mountains of remnant spirits and are automatically absorbed. The body of the immortal sword and dragon is elongated to 8 feet. Immortal patterns grow, and thunder scales are intertwined with gold and purple. Thunderballs are swallowed and sublimated, and the demonic devouring black hole is swallowed. I am the only one who dominates. The dragon's roar shakes the sky and the fragrant scent of rust fills the nostrils. The invisible glide is 6 times the speed of the sword. The ghost trajectory is locked thousands of feet away. The multi-line 10,000 Shadows Thunder network automatically expands with the help of the Chen Alliance's thousands of armies. The dragon-tailed galaxy silently scurries through the devil's palm, the sizzling art predicts the implosion, the grimace has bloody teeth, shattered brains, and blood holes spatter the ground with fishy heat, and the stench of rotten bones turns to burnt flesh and rust fills the air. The old devil's eyes were wide open and his soul was gone, and the black-robed smile was frozen and his throat was rolling with a fountain of blood foam. God, the divine dragon and thousands of shadows are linked together. The blood oath of the outside world, backlash. The demon body shook the spirit sea and blindly devoured it, and the jade slip at the core of the blood oath automatically disintegrated. The dragon's head thunderball burrowed straight into the center of the eyebrows, the devil's body flew backwards and hit the cave wall, stone chips and smoke collapsed, the brain was filled with blood, iron, rust and fairy fragrance were mixed, and the rotten demonic aura evaporated inch by inch. The dead silence in the cave turned to collapse. Xiuxian's jade face was flushed and her beautiful eyes were sparkling with admiration. She put her jade arms around her waist and her hot breath hit her nose. She held the ice and snow body fragrance and said softly and coquettishly, "Master, a dragon slayed the demon king of the outside world. Xiuxian loves you, and the divine sword is the only one." Su Wan's purple robe was stained with blood and she knelt down and roared with tears. The spiritual staff reorganized and thundered and kowtowed, "Disciple's heart-eating 7th level celestial sword has been sublimated. Master Sister repays the favor." The shady story is revealed, and the immortal academy changes to the sky. Thousands of Chenmeng troops burst into the fog, roaring and punching blood. The alliance leader kills the devil in an instant. Long live the Chenmeng demon lord. The poor freshmen hugged each other in tears, and the flying swords buzzed high-frequency blue thunder into the sky. The master of the inner sect is the master of the college entrance examination. The blood moon tilted, and the remaining fog in the forbidden cave cleared away. Chen stood proudly in the center of the pile of corpses. The dragon body of the fairy sword turned its head and whispered. The fairy light absorbed the devilish energy and the residual spirit exploded 10 feet. The golden and purple thunderballs with fairy patterns on the scales swallowed and flickered with invisible tracks. With a flick of his sleeve, the shady jade slips fused with Su Wan's jade talismans flew out, and the blood-red projection of the golden list spread throughout the hospital. Yi Chen's name is forever, the thunder and light champion, the evidence of the devil's brain is irrefutable, and the suspicion of the head of the hospital infiltrated from outside the domain is exposed. The elder in gray robes and gray beard suddenly arrived at the registration hall. He stared at the corpse with blood holes in his throat and his old face was pale and trembling. The dark horse of the college entrance examination, slaughter the demon lord of the outside world. The head of the college is demonized, and the enrollment blood sacrifice chart is broken. Yi Chen, the chief of the inner sect, all the resources of the college are working together. With a wave of his spiritual staff, the golden domes of the fairy garden turned to green and thunder. The 3 members of the family knelt down and kowtowed, "Yi Xianzuan, spare your life. 100,000 golden spirit stones, 100 blood sword handles, 1,000 bottles of elixir, all presented, the family will forever swear an alliance." The poor iron army laughed wildly and howled, the sword array blue thunder galaxy linked to the high-frequency ear-splitting, fly with divine control. The poor sweep across the fairy courtyard, "I am the only one who dominates." The next day at the sword discussing platform, the spiritual pressure of the afterglow of the blood moon surged like a tide, and thousands of people gathered around the sweaty elixir and the scent of the immortal scent filled their nostrils in confusion. The purple robe of Su Wan's reinstated mentor fluttered, and the jade-faced spiritual staff touched the ground and the thunder echoed across the clear sky. Yi Chen, the personal chief. Ready for the 4th turn of the heart-eating art, the emperor-level secret method of the immortal sword is activated. The demon king of the outer world has been cut off, and the demon at the head of the hospital is waiting to be slaughtered. She gave a jade guide between the eyebrows, purple light is injected into the spiritual sea and the golden thunder explodes to 7 levels of stability. The immortal sword and dragon body stretches 12 feet and is filled with emperor light. The scaly emperor pattern thunderball swallows and sublimates and becomes invisible at 7 times speed. Thousands shadows and thousands of threads automatically devour the emperor's core. The new emperor level hums, dragon chants, and the rust emperor incense burns in the sky. Xiuxian's jade body pressed against her red lips and kissed her cheek as smooth as jade. She said, "Lang Jun Emperor Sword. Qingqing Ice Emperor cooperates, and all the Shen family's golden talismans are unsealed to accompany him on his journey to immortality. The whole audience gasped, and the genius of the family was pale. Bai Hushi whimpered and his legs weakened. Emperor-level divine sword. In the Immortal Academy Chen Meng Tian, the poor dominate. The thousands of soldiers of the Chen alliance kowtowed in ecstasy with bloodshot eyes. The leader of the alliance is ascended. The Iron Army will escort to the death, and kill the chief demon of the courtyard. In the afternoon, the resource bank exerted all its strength. The Jin Lingshi mountain collapsed, the blood sword spiritual pill C swallowed it up, Yi Chen's Linghai exploded to the edge of level 7, and the Emperor's sword hummed to absorb the scales of Emperor light to grow. The Shen family's golden talismans were convoying in the heat wave, the ice sword Blue Thunder Emperor's scales were buzzing, the Chen alliance's Iron Army swallowed pills to revive and strengthen their army, and the Flying Sword Emperor's Thunder Galaxy escort was overwhelming. At night, on the golden roof of the gate of the Immortal Academy, the head of the hospital appeared with a faint evil smile in white robes and a pale face. The blood-sworn grimace was distorted and the remaining veins of the outside world were full of rotten flesh. My child, the devil is offering his head? The blood pool of the head of the hospital, enrolling students for eternal sacrifice. The rotten bones in the devil's palm were blasted over the top, and the whole hospital was dead and poor, and they were whispering desperately, the head of the hospital has become demonic, can he be suppressed by divine control? Yi Chen's eyes were cold and ragged, and he smiled contemptuously, the powerful demon leader is just dust. The Emperor's sword, sweep across. Buzz. The Imperial sword transformed into a dragon at the center of the brow, the 12-foot Imperial pattern flashed, the sevenfold invisible sliding ghost 10,000 shadows locked onto the weakness of the spiritual sea at the head of the academy, and automatically absorbed the spiritual energy of the entire academy through the linkage of the 10,000 army galaxy to explode, and the multi-line Imperial network golden purple thunder devoured the Emperor's core. The dragon's tail rushed in silently, imploding ghostly faces, shattering brains, blood holes splashing on the ground, rotten iron, rust and Emperor's fragrance mixed together, the body of the head of the hospital smashing into the golden roof, stone chips and smoke, and all the evil energy evaporated. Su Wan's spirit staff thundered and roared with tears, disciple Emperor sword kills the head of the courtyard. The shady curtain is wiped out, and the Immortal Academy is reborn. Shen Qingqiu put her arms around her waist, breath-burning, and worshipped the water mist, Lang Jun, the Emperor. Qin Qin will follow you forever. 10,000 troops of the Chen alliance roared and kowtowed and smashed their bloody chests, the divine control Emperor is promoted. The poor Iron Army is the sole master of the Immortal Academy, counterattack is a natural creation. Yi Chen, the leader of the Fairy Academy's Golden List, is immortalized. The golden roof and blue thunder soar into the sky, and thousands of lanterns light up the sky. The poor freshmen hug each other in tears, the dark horse of the college entrance examination slays the demon king and the emperor's head, and the Chen alliance leads the path to immortality. The aristocratic family kneels down and contributes resources to the sea, and the powerful are crawling like ants to spare their lives. Su Wan's jade talisman conveyed her voice and cried blood, disciple, the recruitment of the top celestial academy is open, and the emperor's sword is sweeping across the country. The true identity of the demon lord of the outer world is in doubt, and Su Wan is marching with him. Shen Qingqing's red lips covered her ears with sweet words, and her nose was filled with fragrance. Mr. Lang, escorted by the Ice Emperor on the top celestial list, I will love you for the rest of my life. Yi Chen stood proudly on the golden dome, the dragon body of the Emperor's sword turned its head and hummed with the Emperor's light flashing, its eyes scanned the city's spiritual energy and revived the sea of clouds, and the thunder echoed with a low smile, I am the only champion in the college entrance examination of cultivating immortals. The top immortal academy, the journey of slaying demons. The demon king of the outside world, come and fight. The blood moon disappeared, the immortal wind was mighty, the poor counterattacked the immortal road, and dominated the world. In the middle of the blood moon, the forbidden cave collapsed. Demonic energy surged, and the rotten waves surged. An old demonic figure appeared in black robes, grinning ferociously, with a blood-sworn grimace all over his body. The aura of the demon from the outside world pressed like a mountain of spiritual pressure, and his hoarse voice echoed in his head, "My child, the dragon immortal level." Father Zhao's blood oath is revived, and the fairy courtyard is massacred. Tonight, surrender your head. Blood light bursts from the devil's palm and the smell of rotten bones hits your nose, and a decisive battle breaks out. Yi Chen's eyes exploded with lightning, and the fairy sword dragon roared, "Devil, come. I am the only one to sweep away."